Hey everyone, I'm Travis Wright, and you're listening to I'm a Fan Of, your show for music, comedy, and more. As always, if you are a musician, a comedian, or just someone that does something interesting, please reach out to me on Instagram at TravisCanListen. You can find me on Facebook at I'm a Fan Of, or you can reach out to me through the website at imafanofpod.com. This episode, another one of my absolute favorite comics, Emily Grefer. I realized, we talked about it in the podcast, but I realized I hadn't had her on this podcast, my podcast, in too long, because she had come on a podcast that I was producing called Back in the Day with Michael Pasvar. She had been on that show a couple times, so it felt like I'd been podcasting with her, and I hadn't. And in that time, which is definitely a couple of years, I think pre-pandemic, maybe right at the end, I'm not sure, but she has gone from just this, what I thought was an up-and-comer at the time, not an open micer necessarily. I got to watch her as an open micer, but I was watching her doing, smaller comedy shows and thinking like, oh, wow, she's going to be blown up. She's going to be getting bigger. And I remember she was talking about just auditioning at some clubs out of the state and getting passed at certain clubs. And since then, she is just going out of town constantly. She's opening up for bigger names all the time. So she is still on that rise. And every time I watch her, she's got new, hilarious material. I feel like she's one of the people, not just from DFW, just comics in general, that have a very interesting, unique voice. She doesn't have, a lot of comics will fall into those traps where they've got a similar cadence, a similar delivery to somebody that you really enjoy. And I think she's finding her own style so well, and that's what's letting her stand out. We brought her back on the show to chat, catch up, see where everything was going. So here it is, Emily Grefer.
The I'm a Fan Of podcast, music, comedy, and more.
Isn't
I know.
that weird?
It feels,
Anyway.
I feel special.
Yeah.
So.
You are special.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the show, Emily Grefer.
Thank you for having me, Travis.
Absolutely. One of my favorites. Always have been.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Yeah.
You're making me nervous now.
It's like, now let's talk about your blatant racism that everyone's talking about.
Okay,
No.
sorry.
We were just talking about, we were filming Michael Pasvar's podcast in here, which you did 2 episodes of. So this is like your 4th time in this room, but it's only your 2nd time on my podcast.
I know. I feel very comfortable here.
Yeah.
With you and Michael. But I'm like, oh yeah, I
Yeah.
know these people. And I see you out in comedy all the time. So
I know. It's been getting harder and harder to go watch shows now. And I've realized what it is. Like, I want to do more of this, which takes time. Sure. So almost every night I'm doing one of these, it's a show I'm missing. So I have to decide between record something, work, see a kid, go to a show.
Be a dad, be a husband, be a
and
everything.
Now, and there's so many good shows happening that I have to really pick and choose which ones I'm going to watch.
Yes. Oh my gosh. How was that show you saw in Fort Worth?
Catherine Blanford.
Yes.
Yeah, it was her and Megan King.
Oh, that sounds fun.
They were great. I've been getting fascinated. I would say she's like a mid-level headliner. Would you describe her? How would you describe that?
I've only seen a few of her clips. I think she's very funny, but from the bookings that I see that she posts on her social media, that seems about right.
Yeah, like she's getting recognition, but she's climbing that ladder still, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't quite know what I was going to get into. I just knew, okay, she's been on Fallon. She's done Don't Tell Comedy. Mm-hmm. So those are good credits, and I've seen her clips. She's funny.
Yeah.
But then when I saw she was being booked at the Red Room in Fort Worth Hyenas, I was like, that's kind of weird. I was like, I wonder what's up with that. And then, excuse me, one of the other comics I know, I was like, hey, any chance you're coming to this show? And because I was thinking maybe some of y'all would be working on that show, especially since it was Red Room. I didn't know kind of what was going to go on. And I was trying to fill out what was happening. They were like, well, maybe she's rented out the room or something, because the way they do that. Because the other thing that confused me is there was 0 promotion from the club side on that show.
Yeah, so how the Red Room shows, from my understanding, I haven't rented them out, but from what people have told me when they put those shows on, is that you rent the room for a flat rate, you keep ticket sales, and then the club keeps food and alcohol.
Oh, okay.
So
that seems like a shitty deal for her then.
I mean, depends how many people you can have come out, how many shows you can do.
So what would you say that room holds, though? 50 people?
70 max.
70 max.
It's packed.
It was not packed out. It was full, but there's the seat here or there that was open still, right?
Yeah.
So I would say there's probably 50 or 60 people. Tickets were 20 each. So you figure by the time you get a plane ticket, a hotel, you're breaking even on that, right?
True. It may also, I don't know what her relationship is like with the club, or Randy, who's the owner, or what he's looking for when he's looking for the headliners in the main showroom. So maybe her and her team thought this was an opportunity to audition. To,
I could see that. Yeah.
Have weekends there. I don't know.
It was interesting because she's coming back on the 2nd in Dallas.
Oh,
Dallas Hyenas.
Is she doing a one-nighter or is she doing...
She's doing a one night. I think it's like a Wednesday.
Is it, to me, what it sounds like she's like in the audition process, and the Hyenas is looking to see what her numbers are and how she does.
It was real interesting because I could see her progressing and being better and better and better, right? And so in my mind, it was like, this might be the last time I catch her on a small stage.
I believe so, probably.
So that's why I was like, we got to go to the Fort Worth one, even though we live closer to Dallas.
Sure.
And the show is really weird because I felt like in, Catherine watches every episode, so I don't know if this is weird for you, but so she has some clips out there, and you guys know how it is. It's like material's precious, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So I was wondering, what kind of material is she going to do? She probably did like 70% crowd work.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
And then like a couple bits. And I don't know if that was like intentional, if she just got so fascinated by audience members, because the show was kind of chaos in a great way. There was nothing like off, like she was in control the whole time, but like there was a British guy who was like very, not scrawny, but very, very skinny, who was the strength training coach for TCU.
Oh, wow.
Which is in itself just like, the fuck? What?
That juxtaposition.
Yeah. And like, then there was all this side thing about like, did they bring you in for football and you thought like soccer?
Yeah,
right. And like people are yelling out and all this kind of stuff, and it's
Sure.
getting kind of rowdy. And then, then she's talking to a table of like, it was like 4 or 6 lesbians that were all at one table.
Okay.
But they didn't know each other. Somehow these lesbians just randomly got sat together. Like it was like 2 couples or something. Right. So
I think they could probably look at each other and make real, recognize real.
Right.
Like they can see
Right.
it.
And then like there's a table behind us that's doing the normal chatter. And as they're talking, like there's some kind of thing. And then that table holds up like a little baggie of cocaine.
Oh, wow.
And it's just like, so the show is just kind of...
That sounds like a show full of cool people.
It was really fun. It was totally not what I expected, because I was like, she's going to come out here and do like an hour's worth of material. And it was like 40 minutes of crowd work and then some jokes mixed in. And it was very interesting. And so like my takeaway from it was, okay, she's funny, she's good, she's talented. But she's in that stage of her career where it's like, you better stay on top of the writing. Like this is the moment, right? If you keep writing...
I think that, was she also filming? Did she have any cameras that you could see?
Oh, yeah.
Then she's probably, doing what a lot of comics like Sam Morril or other comics do, where they just post crowd work clips because it gets good numbers really quickly to their page.
Sure.
And probably ups the following without having to leak out, I guess. It's not leak. It's they're putting it out. But, just put out their
not
material.
Burning your material.
Yeah.
It was fun. I haven't seen a show like that in a very long time, where it didn't seem very prepared, and it was really fun.
I think that also helps too with building a fan base, because if people feel like intimate, like they know you, they'll probably follow you.
Yeah.
They feel that connection. So maybe that's also her tactic with crowd work, is because if people feel connected to her, they'll probably buy her merch, probably follow her on social media, tell their friends about her.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that is the bigger part of the strategy.
Yeah.
Is to direct towards social media.
You've never really done much crowd work, have you?
I don't do a lot of crowd work, and I post clips of material, which a lot of people don't agree with. But alternatively, my idea is I want to do some writing for late night. And so crowd work is okay. It's fun. But you were doing sit down writing for late night. So I want to showcase that I can write clever bits.
Right.
So that's kind of why I do it. But I do see the benefit of it. And also, I just don't find myself in a lot of scenarios where I would love the crowd work that comes out organically. If it did happen, I would use it, but I don't make it a goal, I guess.
Every time I've watched you perform, I see you give someone eyes in the crowd. Like,
eyes?
Yeah. Like something will happen, and you'll do like a cut, and you're like looking at him, and I'm like, here she goes. She's about to pop off on something. And then it's almost like you go like, no, not today. And then you like come back into the moment.
It does happen sometimes, mainly because I don't want to walk people, because that's money out the door for the venue. So if I see people being disrespectful, I do want to be like, hey, stop. but I won't do it because, like I said, I don't want them to lose out on money. I did call a guy a slut the other day at Comedy Arena because he was wearing the shortest shorts I'd ever seen in my entire life. And it was like a small show and they were loving it. But I'm like, why are you sitting front row? Like, you have these 5-inch inseams. Like, you look like a slut right now. Like, don't you respect yourself?
Well, he didn't get mad at that, did he?
Oh, no, he laughed.
Okay,
he was like, oh, my God, ha, 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 yes. And the friends were like, yeah, why'd you wear that? Like,
yeah, and he's like, he fucks everything.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it was in McKinney, so he might, you know.
Man. Comedy Arena is first of all these little venues we have popping up. I shouldn't say little venues. That venue's been established for some time now, but it's a smaller, out of Dallas venue. And they all are so, like, they're little corks, you know? That venue... I enjoyed it when I went out there, but I don't get it yet. You know what I mean? I've got to watch a few more shows. I don't understand the crowd that goes there. I don't understand, like, you know how that room, like a room just has a feeling, you know?
Yeah, it has a feeling. You can feel the tax bracket. That's how I like to describe it.
Yeah.
It's like if you are familiar with the Frisco, McKinney, Little Elm area of Dallas, you kind of, or North Dallas, I guess the suburbs, you understand what I'm talking about. They're have a little bit more money. They're like nurses and they're middle management and they kind of, have like kids that are really into like select soccer. And it's just like that very upper middle class lifestyle. So I just usually like to approach those rooms of like making fun of them.
Yeah.
Because I went to high school in Frisco. So I always like to
so
tell
these
them
are your
that.
people.
Yeah. And I'm like, I know how you guys are. Like, don't worry. Like, you better tell your kids to go to college because this is what's going to happen. Like, I was there in their shoes and then they laugh at it. But yes, it's very much... upper middle class white collar, so you feel it in that room. You don't feel the diversity. You don't feel like if you talk about something painful there, they get very, very uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's weird because it felt like they would laugh at some things more easily, but then they would tighten up even quicker. They
do, and it's I feel the same thing with college kids because college kids, they're young. Things are usually pretty good. Like, they have school and they're probably working part-time jobs, but they're having a lot of fun most of the time. And if you talk about hard things at colleges, they go like,
yeah.
You can almost hear it.
We're just here for the party, lady.
I know. It's so funny. And I'm like, oh, it's okay, you guys. Nothing bad's happened to you yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the same vibe.
Yeah. I feel like that generation coming up, though, is going to have that feeling of like, we're just going to ignore it. There's lots of problems. We can't change them. It's going to be fine. Let's just party. Everything
going on in the world, and people, it sounds like the most cliche saying because people say that all the time. But I genuinely think, like with the war with Ukraine, Black Lives Matter, anything that is really causing a lot of social change, a lot of people are just going to stick their head in the sand.
Oh yeah, they're checked out.
They're checked out. It.
Well, it's been so many years now that we've been talking about all those things that everyone's checked out because it's like everyone knows like. This is my opinion. That's probably their opinion. We're not changing opinions, so I don't want to talk about it. It's just better off if we don't talk about it. And I think they're all stuck there.
I think a lot of them stuck there. I do when I find myself in conversations with people like that. I will just ask them, what information would you need to see to change your mind?
Yeah.
And then they'll kind of like say it, and I'll be like, okay, well, this information already exists. You can find it here.
Yeah.
And then they don't feel attacked, but... they can't really be ignorant of it anymore, I guess. Or they can't be willingly ignorant, I guess maybe is a better way of saying it.
Yeah.
Because if you're saying like, well, if that's what you need and this is here.
Yeah. You know, on those types of topics, like I find myself thinking about myself as the person you just described, right? Like what views am I stuck in that I don't realize I'm stuck in? And it's like even this last week I was thinking, man, I like Joe Rogan, and I've been listening to a lot of him over the past probably 2 weeks. Like, I'll go through cycles, right?
Sure.
And then you got to remind yourself, it's like, man, he's what, like in his 50s now?
Yeah.
And it's like you start to notice, it's like, okay, he's in his 50s. He's got a lot of money. There's nothing wrong with that. But he's in the prime of his life in terms of success and wealth and everything. And it's like, that's kind of the perfect age where you get stuck in some views that maybe aren't the healthiest. And so I'm not saying that he is.
Sure.
But I'm just wondering, it's like, what am I in my little bubble with by listening to this 3-hour podcast all the time? And so now I find myself reaching out to find like, okay, what's like a younger thing I just don't understand?
Yeah.
And it's like, I need to get a dose of that too. And we need to balance this out a little bit, you know?
I think about that. I also think I would love for your podcast to have this, but his has $100 million contract with Spotify.
Yeah.
And so I don't think he's necessarily incentivized to do a lot of expanding beyond his current ideas, because that has helped gain the following.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying he's incapable of it, but where would be the incentive? I think a lot of times with people's actions, I think about where would their incentive come from to do those types of things. And if you're already making 100 million plus these sold out arenas, there's not really the incentive. And I understand that. I don't always agree with it, but I understand that line of thinking.
I think you just gradually get out of touch.
Yes.
And that's my fear, right? Because it's like he was the rebellious, cool outsider.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And now he's slowly drifting into the he's the older guy with money and stuff. And I was like, man, I'm not far behind his age. It's like, God, I'm going to slowly be drifting into the person who doesn't understand any of it. And it's like, I grew up, it's like we were rebellious punk rockers. Like we had dyed hair and just fuck everything. And it's like, I don't want to get caught in that trap.
I don't want to get caught in the trap. It's like you are putting yourself in situations where you're probably maybe not surrounding yourself with a ton of new people all the time, even though comedy you are. Yeah. But if you have a posse you travel with and perform with all the time, it's like, are you really experiencing a lot of really new opinions where you're actually connecting with people for a significant amount of time? Maybe not. And also podcasts, especially his, can be scripted and directed on some level. So they have certain talking points in a certain direction he is trying to take it to. So is he really doing a lot of learning and understanding? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what he does down in Austin. I don't think a lot of people don't see him out too much. So I don't know what he's doing down there.
That whole Austin comedy scene to me, I think it's good. I think it's good that all that's happening. But it is kind of it's really interesting to watch it all unfold and to see what's actually going to happen down there.
Yes, it's interesting.
Because I'm going to go ahead and say, I think we still have a better comedy scene up here. I think they have some heavy hitters.
Sure, yeah,
and I think his club's going to be incredible when he opens it.
Sure.
But I think our scene's probably a broader, healthier scene.
I also feel like a lot of comedy goes in trends. So there's a lot of trends right now. Roast are a big trend right now within I think the last 5 to 10 years. There's roasts have always been around, but I think there's always been a big uptick in them. And so it'll probably cycle out in the next 5 to 10 years. But from what I've witnessed, it's the money made off of that is really profitable right now. And that's a lot in Austin.
Yeah.
Which, with Tony Hinchcliffe, Joe Rogan, all that, it's that's
and Tony Hinchcliffe, his whole thing is just roast. I mean, even Kill Tony, it's all a ton of it's roasting, and I like Kill Tony.
Sure.
But speaking of roasting, didn't you just win a roast battle at the Plano Comedy Festival?
Yeah.
Who were you roasting?
I started off with we ended it with myself and Jonathan Jones.
Oh,
and if you guys don't know who Jonathan Jones is, he's Mr. Thickness 2018. I
didn't know he was a roaster. I didn't know he gets in there and does that.
He likes some of it. He is very nice, so he doesn't go too hard on people, and I wish he did, because it's that's the fun of it, is the writing and seeing people's creativity. I did write him a joke because he's a dad of 2 girls. And I said, Jonathan Jones has 2 daughters who've never seen him do comedy. But that doesn't bother him, though, because he's never given child support a second thought. It was just so quick. I love that type of writing, because it's putting those things together is not... The misdirection isn't so obvious. It's some people can see it really quickly, but something like that is right at the end.
I've been going back to old Jesselnick clips.
Yeah.
And he's the pro at that.
Sure.
I mean, his stuff is just, you never know where it's going.
Yeah.
And it's even now, now that I know some of it's coming, and it's still ooh, that is brutal.
I know. And it comes from a place of I know you, and so it's I will ask people before the roast. I'll be is there something you don't want to talk about? Because I would rather avoid a subject than burn a bridge with people I know and care about. But usually people are pretty cool, and they know I don't try to hit below the belt. I try not to bring up anything about ex-partners or anything like that, just because that stuff gets messy. And
and it's I mean, just from my experience going to the shows, it's most of you guys are such open books.
Yeah,
it's
I know.
I don't even do this, and I could roast the shit out of some of y'all just by the material y'all giving me on stage. You know what I mean? It's
That, and it's really hard to write for people you don't know.
Ooh, yeah.
It's so hard to like.
I would be horrible though, because I think I could come up with stuff. I could hang in terms of dishing it out.
Sure.
But I feel like I have no concept of myself sometimes.
I enjoy for that reason. I love it.
Well, so what I mean is like people would say stuff and then I'd be like, oh God, like that's how they see me. That's the real way that they see me. And then I would stay up for nights and nights and nights thinking about it. And it's like I couldn't handle a roast like that very well. I'd have to build up the thick skin. I'd have to start with like a mildly polite roast.
Okay, well, I'll give you a little hint. Grow up with 5 sisters.
Yeah.
You get a very thick skin. I like hearing what people say about me because it gives me, and especially depending on how close the relationship is, but if they are pretty distant from me, they don't know me too well personally, and seeing what jokes that they've written and what hits, to me, I'm like, okay, this is what an audience would guess about me.
Yeah.
So I can use that information to write my own personal material and kind of cater it to being like, yes, you could think this about me, but these other parts are also true within this bit.
Yeah.
But it's just like being aware of what you look like to other people is really difficult. So I like that information from roast. It's data collecting for me.
Yeah. It's so weird, right? Because it's like we've all caught that picture that's not taken, that's taken when you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck, that's me.
Yeah. It is. I'm like, please untag me.
Yeah.
Like, that's what people think of you is the Facebook when you untag those pictures on Facebook.
Oh,
And I'm
my God.
Jesus.
My favorite one of those ever that has ever come up on the internet is David J. Diaz sitting in that chair looking like he has a pregnant belly.
Oh my gosh, with Seth's
Actual
girlfriend
pregnant,
Emily.
yeah.
Yes, when she was pregnant. Oh my gosh, just them bumps side to side.
Yes, and it's like, God, man, I'm sorry, David, but that's a hilarious picture. Like,
I think he started working out after that picture. I think he legitimately was like, I need to start working out.
because it's like clearly he was like, for people who don't know, he's like sitting back in his chair at a bar, like the most relaxed you could possibly be. I think it was even like a tall chair, so like your legs aren't hitting the ground; they're just kind of hanging down. It's a straight side profile, and he's just like sitting in a hunched way that makes his belly look even bigger than it probably is.
Oh yeah, and he's like lean.
I think his arms are even like behind his back, like.
So he's lean in his like upper chest and arms. So it's like just makes everything so much look more exaggerated.
Have you watched him perform recently?
Yes.
I haven't seen him in a little while, but I do remember he was making like big jumps getting better. You know what I mean? Like I remember watching him really early and he was like nervous and fidgety and he hadn't really found kind of his onstage voice yet.
Yeah.
And then there was a big gap and I saw him like 2 or 3 times in a row and I was like, damn, he finally found, well, I don't know. He's probably always still working on it, but it's like he kind of found his voice a little bit. And he's getting better and better and better. And I've been so like I've finally hit that point where I'm seeing the results of a lot of y'all who have been putting in a lot of work over the last like 3 years, right?
Yeah.
And it's like some people are just popping off right now.
I know.
And it's really fun. Like
it's fun, it's exciting,
Yeah.
it's inspiring. I look at the people that I work with now and I think, okay, Emily, you're doing all right, but you can't get lazy.
Yeah.
Like I think that like
yeah, and everybody's kind of going in different directions with their success, which is even more fun. It's like, oh, there's not one path. Like it's like this person's doing well here, this person's doing, because it's like, you know, Ralph's doing great, and it's like Pung got passed up at the Comedy Cellar, which is incredible.
Yeah,
and then you got guys like Tony Casillas who are going down south in Austin and doing stuff like that, and people are just kind of spreading out and like representing Dallas in these different areas, or DFW as a whole, really. Yeah, and it's so much fun.
I love Dallas because I do think Dallas is a ton of like real, like people are very heavy on the joke writing. Like persona and act outs are important, sure. But like a lot of people really try hard to write clever, good bits. And I appreciate that. Not every scene is like that. So, I like that.
I would never drop names, but there's been multiple times where I go watch the out-of-town performer who's got the locals opening. And you're just like, oh, man, like you're the headliner? Like, it's like you see all the ingredients. It's like, I know you are funny.
Sure.
It's like, but this material's lame.
Yes. Also, I am a little bit worried as what social media success is going to contribute to that, because there are a lot of people who on YouTube or TikTok or whatever would be okay or decent stand-ups, but they just are accelerated so quickly because they become popular through that medium.
Yeah, they haven't put the actual stage time in.
They don't, or they just haven't like naturally developed those skills from that stage time, or
That's
they
true.
don't have the written material. So they'll have 6 comics on the show with them who can fill some time because they don't have the 45 minutes to do an hour and a half show.
Yeah.
And
before this next statement, I have no desire to do comedy. Okay.
Yeah, I know. We keep talking about it.
But, well, because a lot of people I talk to are like, oh, you eventually will. And I'm like, I'm not going to ever. But I will, like, I'll think of something that's funny just driving. Like, something will come up, right? And I'll play a game with myself where it's like, okay, let's see if I could turn that into a minute and a half. 2 minutes, right? Just to remind myself, like, how difficult it is, you know? And then you're right. It's like, so if you did just, boom, just get like 300,000 followers overnight, and now they're like, do you want to do, 45 minutes?
And you got to cash in.
And you're like, of course I'll do 45 minutes. And it's like, fuck, that's
about what?
It's going to be a rough 45 minutes.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so, I don't know. The whole thing has made me really obviously respect joke writing. But it did get me thinking the other day about open mics, right?
Yeah.
Because what we were just talking about with, like even you, since the last time you were on this podcast, we were just talking then about you. I think you had just gotten past at maybe up in Little Rock or something.
Probably, yeah.
It was like your first out of town
weekend there, probably, yeah.
I don't think it was the first weekend, but it was like the first club where you're like, I think I'm consistently performing there now or something like that. And now you're like getting out all the time. And so it's like, I want other people to share in that progression.
Yeah.
So it's like, what do you think it's going to take to get people who are like mildly into comedy to go to the excruciating open mics? Like, how would you sell it if you're like, the reason you go to open mic is because?
Well, I mean, I don't know how to describe it to other people. Like I was at Fort Worth Hyenas this past weekend, and a audience member came up to me and was like, telling me like, oh, blah, blah, the show was great. And I was like, oh, thanks, whatnot. And then he was like, yeah, I've been kind of thinking about wanting to do comedy, but I just, like, I don't know. He's like, I know there's an open mic here in town that, like, I've been to, and it's, like, great. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe I should just, like, go. And I was like, hey, this is, like, the best thing I've ever done with my life. Like, if you have any idea or any inkling of wanting to, you should absolutely do it, because the longer you wait, the more you'll regret it. And even if you don't go anywhere with it, but like if you want to just try it, you should absolutely do it. Some comics will be like, don't try comedy, whatever, give up, blah, blah, blah. I would never be one of those people. I'm almost 5 years in and I still don't feel that way.
Listen, that was very motivational. But what I meant was, how do you talk somebody into coming and watching open mics?
Oh, how do audience members?
Yeah.
I don't know. They do drink specials.
No, but I think like
comics probably have weed. You could probably smoke weed with someone after. If you're looking for cheap drugs, you will find them there.
But I think like there's no reason you couldn't have a group of 30 or 40 people that like love comedy watching open mics.
Sure.
And it would be more fun even for the open micers, right? Because that's really what sucks about open mic is there's no crowd.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can be kind of shitty, but it'd be better if there was people there giving you pity laughs at least, right? And then when somebody does actually say something funny, it's like, that's, I don't know. My wife won't go back with me. I think that's why I'm asking.
Really? Because she's just been
too stressful.
So much painful.
Too stressful.
Yes.
Like, she was like, my jaw hurt when I left because I was grinding my teeth. She's like, I felt so bad for these people. She's like, I just wanted them to get a laugh.
Oh my gosh. You want that so badly for people. Yeah. And a lot of comics I see will pop off to audiences at like bar mics and whatnot, and it's the exact opposite of what you should do. And they get really frustrated, and so it's a negative experience with the audience member because they start singling them out, and then people are like, well, like, fuck it, I just don't want this guy to like be like harassing me while I'm drinking this beer. I'm just not going to come back to this bar. Yeah. And they do stuff like that. Like open mics like Dallas Comedy Clubs, their Wednesday open mic is, I think, the best one in town that I can think of at the moment. That and Fort Worth's open mic on Thursdays at the Fort Worth Hyenas, because that has a following. Like, it's curated, and people who come into that, they know it's an open mic. They know these are not everyone's professional, but they're there for it. And it's in that like concentrated club setting where you can come and go as you want, but you are there for that. And it's hard to market that at bars. I'm not great at it. It's
because you've been hosting Who to See at DCC.
Yes.
That's right.
And that's been getting better, but it's still tough because it's
I don't know how any of y'all sell any tickets to that because I enjoy going, but I love comedy. And, they only will give you the stage time on weeknights, which is a harder sell too. Mm-hmm. It's usually later because they're like, hey, we got the improv classes and stuff. And
they have a lot of that.
But man, I have been enjoying that series you're doing. Like, we were talking about it after you did your first one.
Yeah. This one coming up, I have Zach Webb and Andy Franklin coming on, and I still have to book a third person. But I always really love like being able to put like people that like I see all the time on, like, and these are people who I see practicing. It's not just like, oh yeah, they're doing shows here and there, but like I see them practicing. Yeah. And it's like they feel really free on stage because they're doing it so much, so they make the shows really fun. Yeah. Well, and that it's filling a gap that we don't have a lot of, which is like it's another stepping stone of, these guys might not be in like the local club circuit yet. Yeah. But they don't want to do bar mics anymore. They don't need to do that right now. It's like they need club spots that are shows. And when you're like on that precipice, you don't get a lot of opportunities to do like 15 minutes, like like uninterrupted. And so it's like to prep for that, it's like you need shows like this to get comfortable to do that. Yeah. So God, I'm blanking on his name right now, but the show I went to, I knew a lot of the people that were already on it, but he's like a younger, light-skinned black guy. Or he's mixed, I think. And I think he might do a little bit of rapping on the side even now. Oh, you think so? I'm trying to think who it is. Oh, my God, what's his name? He was on, like, your first thing. I'm just going to look on your Instagram. That's fine. If you got the show flyer on there. Yeah. But he was, like, someone who I just hadn't heard of, period. And I was like, oh, my God, this dude's really funny. It's going to drive me nuts. Now I have to just feel dead air while I'm trying to find it. Yeah. But that is the beauty of that show is, like, you're going to find that person that you just haven't seen before. Even yesterday, I did the Dallas Comedy Club's like their funniest comic in Dallas competition, and there were 12 comics on our show. There were 8 of them that I didn't know, and so I was like, oh wow, like these people are out here, and it was like nice to like get like refreshing opportunities to see people that like I just hadn't seen for whatever reason. Yeah, and it was really nice. I liked it. Do you remember when that first show was? Oh, it was probably... Has it been that long ago? Maybe it was August, I believe, of this past year. So maybe, I think I'm probably coming up on... You have to find this. This is going to drive me nuts if I don't find this flyer. Right. Oh. We will edit all this out. No, we're going to leave it in. We're going to leave the painful silence in. Yeah. Yes, I'm happy to do it. That's fine with me. Because I know... Oh, okay. So is it... there's on the first one I did was Trey Mack, Ruth Banks, Fonzo Crow, Luis Suarez. Let me see the picture. That's the first one I ever did. Oh, maybe it was the second one that I went to then. It would have had I think I'm stroking out right now. She's been on my podcast. Red hair, super funny, or she dyes her hair. Oh my God. I'm having a really, really see, I'm getting old. I'm having moments. Was it? No, I'm trying to think. Now you're going to have me like anxious. I'm like, who have I not put on this show? So it was on the same show as Carrie Smith. Carrie Smith. Wasn't she on one of yours? She was on one of mine. And I'm trying to think, who was that other? This person's going to be so upset. He's like a young dude. He's really funny. Oh, Jordan J. Yes, Jordan J. Yes, he was on the show I was on last night. Oh, okay. Yeah, when you said light skin, I was like, isn't he like a light skin guy? He is. Yeah. Okay. His mom's white and his dad is black. I don't know if his dad is full or half. I'm not sure. Okay. But I know his mom is white. Oh, my God. He was so funny. He's so funny. Young dude. Yes. So it's like he's coming at it from an angle that I don't normally hear, which is just what I was talking about. It's like, give me something that's not the typical material I've been hearing. Yeah. And really, really funny dude. And it got me thinking about how, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, maybe it's just me, but it feels like, okay, the way a lot of you guys get shows is by the other comics you hang around. Yeah. Right? And so it's like you get stuck in your circles. And it seems like the black comedians are still like a little separated from the whole scene sometimes. Because it's like, I'm learning, it's like there's all these comics that I don't know of, but I also don't know where they're performing ever. Yes. So does that make sense? Yes. Did I just sound like crazy racist just then? No, it's honest. It's true too. It's like there's the whole DFW comedy scene at large, but then there is a smaller subgroup that a lot of the black comics will put on a lot of independent
Yes,
shows
yeah.
and things like that.
Because
and
just from following a few people like CJ Starr, Shed G, now Jordan J, and it's like now I'm seeing it's like, oh no, he's not as new as I thought he was. He's just never performing where I think to go.
And that's also something I wanted at putting the show on at DCC is because I don't know how welcome some other comics feel at more mainstream venues.
Yeah.
And so I want them to feel welcome. I want them to be like, we want your voice here.
Well, because when you see some of these independent shows that are going on, you're like, fuck, these clips are funny.
Yeah.
These are funny fucking comics. And I don't see them at the clubs I'm going to.
I know.
And you're like, you're watching them destroy. And by the way, a lot of these clips, because they're doing them in kind of weird independent venues, the whatever, like, I mean, it could be like an apartment complex's pool house or something that they're putting this on in, right?
Sure.
So it's like a rowdy, there's no security, there's nobody saying like, all right, quiet down. And they're controlling this room of drunk people.
Yeah, I
And you're
believe
like-
it.
And you're like, fuck, that's really funny. But then you go look and it's like, there's nowhere I can go watch them. I don't know where their shows are.
That's the thing. Yeah. I personally just go to their personal Instagram pages and will then, when I see where they post, I'm like, okay, yeah, I know where this venue is at. I can stop by and see them. And they are so funny and they work so hard. And I really do think a lot of venues not booking more diverse lineups are really missing out.
What do you think that is? Do you think it's just like, do you think they don't even realize it's happening that way? Or do you think that it's just, the circles are kind of, like I said, like you get your shows based on the people that you're coming up with in comedy, and just out of whatever reason, they're not as cohesive as you want them to be, right?
Yeah.
Like that's got to be all. It feels like it's just by chance. It doesn't feel like there's anything that's actually making it that way.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything malicious, to my knowledge, at least, going on. But I think it's also comedy clubs are kind of like, we've been around for so long, people come and go all the time. Like they're not super concerned about it. A lot of it is like who goes out of their way to come there to make themselves seen. And it's frustrating because if you don't feel welcome there, then why would you start coming around even though you want those opportunities still? It's like if there's, I don't know, maybe either comics say something weird to you or if just the vibe is just off or something, then it's like, why would you make the effort? But then it's that double-edged sword. It's like, yeah, you don't feel welcome, and I totally understand that. But then they're not seeing you.
Yeah, you also have to.
You
also have to get out of your comfort zone and just come do this too.
It's I mean, I try not to be critical of people choosing where they do and don't go because I understand there's places that like maybe I wouldn't feel comfortable. So I try not to put that on other people if they say I don't feel comfortable at this venue for whatever reason, whether it's a specific person or a certain vibe or something that was said to them one time. I don't know. So I try not to be too critical.
I know the comics that come on this show would never get into this subject, and so I don't expect you to.
Sure.
But I will just say that I talk to my wife and other people off this podcast all the time about, like, if I were king of the clubs, how I would do it.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But one of the things that gets on my nerves, and the same thing happens in music, is like these venues, in music anyway, which I'm more experienced in than comedy, like, yeah, the bands, the artists, like you have an obligation to promote everything yourself.
Absolutely.
Right? But the venues used to have like their own really good promotional team as well.
Yeah.
And I feel like almost none of these comedy clubs really promote the way they could. Like the Catherine Blanford show, for instance. It's like, even though she's in the Red Room, and she's got a huge following and she's going to promote all this herself, it's like, does it hurt you at all to just do a little bit of social media to also help her move a few tickets that maybe she didn't move,
Yeah.
And to in part to show, like, if you come here, here's what we will do for you.
Yeah.
We want you coming here to Dallas, Fort Worth and performing for our audiences, right?
Yeah.
And then I definitely feel that way about just the average weekend show at whatever club.
Yeah.
A couple of them do it better than others, but overall it's like you usually don't know what's happening until 2 nights before.
Yes, and I appreciate.
You don't have to comment on that.
No,
if you
no,
want to. I don't want you to burn any bridges with venues
no,
or anything.
I don't think you are, or I'm not going to. But it's just there are clubs that will do the emails and the text chains because I get them. So I know if those people fill out those like comment cards, which sounds annoying when like I'm telling you fill out a comment card.
Oh, I filled them out a long time ago.
Yeah, it's how people hear about them, and it is free marketing as far as paid marketing. I don't know how they justify paid marketing and how you can like get the real numbers and tangible results from that paid marketing to, I guess, justify it for budgets. I don't know how you do that. And then, I was working at one club one time where one of the shows had such a low count and they canceled it. And I told the headliner very directly, I said, you will have to do a lot of marketing because this place does not do a lot of marketing. So I want you to be aware. And plus, I want to have good shows too. So I always promote things as well. But if the club is not doing the best marketing, depending, and especially depending on how long it's been a club, where their location's at, it's like the comics do have to do a lot of heavy lifting, which that's part of it. But it's frustrating.
Like you just
times.
because you just know it's like it's that. I think that's why, like, I don't want my son to do any team sports. I grew up playing team sports. And at the end of it all, I always felt like if that person would have just worked a little harder, think of what we could have accomplished.
Right?
Yeah. You know, like, I'm over here busting my ass as hard as I can, and then this person's slacking off. And that's what I feel like it's kind of come to with a lot of venue comic relationships, right? Where it's like, they're like, you guys do the legwork. And it's like, but y'all have so many resources. And I don't even need you to use all of them, but could you just use a little bit? Like just a little bit. A
little bit. And the one thing that they always will have is the food and alcohol licenses.
Yeah.
Which is, that's how they pay their taxes. It's filed under as a restaurant. I get all of that. But I'm like, yes, just a little bit more would be so great. Yeah. And it's so frustrating.
Well, and that's like on that level, that's one thing that DCC has done really well is like keeping the built-in bar.
Yeah.
Where you can have crowds just coming in and then putting up these beautiful signs outside and having locals on there too, not just national people. I do think that's really good.
Yeah.
But it's like I want to bring them all in a room and be like, okay, guys, here's what we're gonna do.
It's funny
because some of them we don't have to say any names. Some of them it's like y'all make a fuck ton of money. You can put a little bit of that into marketing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like just to kind of like help the scene, do your part sort of, but
and something I do definitely appreciate about DCC is they give a lot of locals a lot of chances maybe other clubs don't give. And it's so interesting because maybe like when I'm in this doing this all the time, I never expect people to be paying attention. Like I always I know audiences come and go and I'm nice and say hello and everything afterwards. But I never really think that there's like repeat people. Like I never expect it. And so like this past Friday at Fort Worth, I was walking by to go to the Red Room for something. And some audience members like, oh, she's really going to be funny. I've seen her before.
Oh, that's
and I
badass.
was like, oh my God, I never expect people to remember me. And I was like, wait, I'm sorry, sir, what? And he was like, oh, I saw you at the Improv. Oh, you're going to be great. I've seen you before. And I was like, oh my God. But like, you're so caught up in everything. I'm like, oh, there are people who it's like they build like clubs will build like repeat members. And it's so.
I think that's an easy trap. And again, this is like, I don't know the behind the doors conversations at these clubs. So I could be totally way off. And I love all these clubs. I still go to all of them.
Yeah,
I'm not going to dog any of them. But
no, absolutely.
I do wonder if sometimes they realize like their ability to build in a regular who will come watch a blind show is strong. Like you could do that because me and several of my friends, it's before the pandemic hit really hard. We were picking like once a month, twice a month shows. And we were like, let's just go.
Yeah.
And they were just blindly trusting me that I was taking them somewhere with funny people. And then we'd get there and I was like, I know 2 people on this 8-person lineup that are funny. The others might be horrific. But I would tell them, I'd be like, but it's this club. They usually have good people.
Sure, yeah.
And so it's like they could build it up a lot easier than they realize and then have this just great regular clientele. I think the reason I banner on about this so much is just I want these clubs, a couple of them, to be like the places that sell out on Tuesday nights.
Yeah, that's
you know what I mean?
saying.
Because it's all here. It could there's plenty of people to rotate through the stage time.
And there's plenty of audience. We have 8 million people in DFW.
Yes.
So, I mean, there's plenty of audience.
Yeah. Like, wouldn't it be amazing if you could hit up Backdoor Comedy Club on a Monday night and it's sold out. And they're like, Emily, you want to do like 8 minutes?
Oh my God.
Wouldn't that be fucking incredible?
Phenomenal.
And you could just go work out a little bit of material or do whatever you want to do. And then, on Tuesday, you roll down to DCC or something and they're like, hey, it's so-and-so show. First one's all booked up, but the second show, it's sold out too. And we can put you on there if you want.
Yeah.
And then Wednesday night, it's like, hey, the Hyenas open mic's always packed. Of course, we put you in a good spot here.
Yeah.
I mean, like, there's no reason the scene couldn't work that way.
For sure.
And that's not even including the Fort Worth clubs I just left out.
Oh, no,
and the
absolutely.
Addison clubs and Plano and,
And it's so interesting to see the influx of, like, what brings people in and what doesn't. Like,
to a show, you mean?
to shows, yes, because it's like you want things fresh and new, so audience members are intrigued and they're brought in, and so it's like that constant. But to recreate that every night is so hard. I don't know how to do it. Not that I have answers, but it's. I think that's also probably another reason, like I said, like crowd work and roasting has become so popular because it's so fresh and in the moment. You can't recreate it again like a bit.
You're so right, because I don't know if it was the first comedy show I ever went to, but it's the first one I remember. And it took me a long time to think about it, but I remember now it was Tom Rhodes, who's obviously, like, he's a well-known name.
That's
and is
so
phenomenal.
Awesome. Yeah.
But that was like, it was either the first or the early show. It was Dallas Hyenas, and I went with like a big group of friends, and that group of friends, like, we were like, whatever, like, I would never call on them to help me out in a bind, but we were above acquaintances. Like, we were the friends who would, like, go out and do things, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, we're going to a comedy show. And I was like, oh. And I remember thinking, like, what do you wear to a comedy show? Like, what am I supposed to put on,
Yeah.
And so we get there, and Michael Jackson had recently died. He was doing a bunch of material.
Wow, so this was 2009.
It was a long time ago,
Yeah.
And Tom Rhodes was talking about how he was like, yeah, man, like, it made me real depressed. He's like, I don't think he's doing this Michael Jackson material anymore.
Probably not. Yeah, okay. It has not aged well.
Well, he went on this whole thing about how he had all these jokes about how he thought he was going to meet Michael Jackson and they were going to be like buds and all this kind of stuff.
Oh my gosh.
And he's like, I always pictured I'd meet him and I'd be like, what the fuck were you saying in that one song? And like, so he had all these jokes. And then this girl got super offended and was like, too soon. And he's like, what? And he's like interacting a little bit, and he like wins the crowd back a little. He didn't lose them, but he's like trying to just get it back. Sure. And then she keeps going, keeps pushing.
Yeah.
And he's like, listen, all my other peers are doing child molestation jokes. I'm talking about how I like the guy's music.
Yeah.
And he's like, what do you want me to do here? And she's like, I want you to shut up or something, and like not talk about it at all, blah, blah, blah. Somehow it turns into him praising the guy that she's with for not dating her because he's like, thank God, I thought you were too lazy to jack off or something. And like he had all this, and then he just starts laying into her. Now he's had it.
Yeah.
The crowd is dying.
Yeah.
It goes into her storming out.
Yeah.
Coming back in, and when she came back in, somehow he won her back over, and the entire venue is singing Michael Jackson songs and like rocking their hands, right?
What a pro. That sounds so awesome.
Incredible. And so to your point, it's like, I will never forget that comedy moment.
Yeah.
And Tom Rhodes has written some incredible actual material.
Absolutely.
But that's going to be the moment I remember about Tom Rhodes forever. So I can see the allure of all the crowd work,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's in the moment.
Yeah, nobody will ever have that experience again. It was a one-time thing.
Not. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because I remember, too, he had some bit about how British people do, instead of saying the word cunt, they say coont.
Oh, they do? Oh, I did not know.
In 2009, this is what Tom Rhodes said.
Yeah.
They said coont, and he said that word was not as offensive there as it is here, so it was just being said a lot more.
Yeah.
And when all that was going on with the girl, he's like, I'm just trying to figure out what your problem is or something like that. And my buddy, like, this is before I even knew what heckling was. My buddy just didn't miss a beat, and he was just like, she's a coot.
Oh, my God.
And, like, the crowd loses it. He drops the mic. Tom Rhodes came and, like, sat down next to my friend and was, like, just trying to hand on the mic. Like, just go ahead. I don't know what to do now.
Oh, my God. That's
and it's
so
like, it was just
funny.
And that, I think that moment, like I said, I don't know if that was the first show, but that was definitely the show where it's like, I love live comedy. I will be coming back all the time now,
I like that aspect of it. Also, I think people feel less intimidated on some level when you do crowd work because it's like when you're up high on a stage, you're kind of like, whoa, who is this? Like this performer? Like you're obviously some level of quote unquote importance because they gave you the mic to talk to all of us. So like that can be intimidating. So I think crowd work kind of brings them down a little bit, and like when they're talking back and forth.
I would view it the opposite way. The idea of y'all talking to me makes me more nervous.
People get nervous for sure, but some people really want to talk to you though.
Yeah.
Like some people will be talking the whole time during your set, and like sometimes the audience can hear it, and that's usually when I'll address it, and that's when I'll say something and be like, "Oh, what's up?" Or like usually people will laugh and say something like, "Oh, that's good," or "That's funny," and I'm like, "Thanks, I wrote it." And then like people will like play off of it and have fun, but like otherwise, yes, some people are very scared, and when you can tell they get like tight and pull back, then I'm like, oh fuck, now I gotta work out of this, go back into material, and then see if I can feel comfortable doing that again, like with someone else, and not have them get weird because this person pulled back, so other people around them are going to be uncomfortable too.
Yeah. I'm always amazed by the person who has like absolute confidence and thinks they are owning the moment.
Oh, they're like, I'm helping you.
It's
I'm
amazing. I know. It's so good. It's so good. My wife and I, every show we try to pick out like who is it? Who's the who's the heckler? Who's going to say some dumb shit? Like we love playing that game, and we've gotten pretty good at it. We
you can tell. Anyone who wears a hat to a comedy show, usually that's someone who needs a lot of attention. Genuinely, any type of hat, like any flashy flat bill, any cowboy hat, those girls with the big wide brim hats that you see, they'll wear them into the comedy show. I'm like, they're going to tell you to take that off because people behind you won't be able to see. And it's just funny. So that's something I've definitely noticed is anyone who wears a hat or anyone who comes into the showroom with a drink. Because there's like bars that you can like drink and relax before they let you in. And if you come into the show with a drink, I'm like, this person might be a problem. Just because they've already probably had some before they even got to the club bar. So it's like, people act wild. If they walk in, I'm like, all right, you're going to be a problem. And they're chatty too. They're chatty.
Yeah, I hate the hecklers, but I love them. But I fucking hate them. And we're always next to the talkers. Like I said at that most recent show we went to, the cocaine girl was like right behind us.
Oh my God.
So of course, like she's just through the whole show, She
probably just took some.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. 100%. And like the stuff she was saying, it was like, she's so funny. I remember watching this thing. It's like, the girl you're talking about being funny is trying to be funny right now. You're
right
living in the funny moment.
Oh my gosh. And that's a thing that cokeheads do not realize is that coke makes you feel great. Yeah. Sure. But no one likes being around cokeheads. No. Cokeheads are so annoying. Yeah. It's like no one wants to be around you. But you can't be alone because if you're doing coke alone, that's depressing. Yeah. That's sad. Yeah. So you have to be around people.
Well, after she held up that baggie, she definitely made a few friends.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. She's like, let's go to the bathroom, girls.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah. Before I forget, did you do a show with Harlan Williams?
I did. That was last year. Yeah. That was so much fun.
Yeah, I haven't got to talk to you about that.
He did the most insane crowd work. Like he had some bits that were material, but I'm trying to think of, I don't even know how to describe his approach. Like he would ask people questions, but just say them in this like really offbeat, funny bizarre. Way. That it's very bizarre. He was a very nice person off stage, very professional, but it's just his crowd work. It was so fun to watch because people were just like busting out at just the question before they the audience would even respond. They were just busting out at the question. It was so great.
His people like him, their careers, they're so interesting because part of the reason I was thinking that is my son just started watching this new animated show with like puppies.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's 2 little animated puppies and they have an owner, and every day the owner has a crisis, and like one of the crises was he really wanted French toast and he didn't have any bread.
Oh my gosh.
And I think the puppies can either time travel or something. I don't know what's going on with it. But they went to Paris, France and figured out why the bread wasn't being delivered to this guy.
Oh my gosh.
And they got him his bread. And when he came home from work, he was like, I can have French toast now. And Harlan Williams voices the guy.
Oh my God.
Because I was like, this fucking voice. This is
so familiar. So it's like,
how are you doing Half Baked and
Dude,
Puppy Mystery or whatever the show is called?
He's just raking in the money.
I know. And I was just like, that's just... What an incredible life to be that bizarre and work all the time.
Work all the time, and especially like voice acting work. It's so hard to get, but it's so easy to do that those people make so much money, and I'm so jealous. Yeah. I'm so incredibly jealous.
Harlan probably only has like 6 lines on every episode.
I bet he makes a fuck ton of money. Yeah. I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it.
I think that's one of the fun things about having a kid is if I meet any of these famous people now, I'm just going to be like, you're on that kid show.
And you're not the weirdo.
And I won't be talking about comedy anymore.
Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
Like Judy Greer, the actress Judy Greer.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
She is in a show called Storybots, where these little computer robots kids ask a question, and then the robots go research and find the question for them. And like they go out into the real world. And they're supposed to be like little computer parts, I think. And it's like, is that she also voices Archer. It's like this.
Yeah.
What a she said some of the most filthiest things I've ever heard on this other animated series. And now she's figuring out where rain comes from.
Right. And just raking it in.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It makes me jealous. People who have kids make me jealous because they can openly enjoy certain things and receive zero scrutiny.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have a niece who she's 12 now, but like 2 years ago, she came in to visit. They live in California. And it was like around my birthday time, and I was so excited because I was like, "Oh my god, I want to go to the Lego store. I've always wanted to go to Legoland. I've always wanted to go, but they don't let you go if you don't have a kid.
Oh, that's like a hard rule.
A hard rule. So I was like, my niece is coming with me. I'm so excited. Yes, we're gonna go to Legoland. And I was gonna put it like the Catholic guilt on her, being like, it's for my birthday. We're going. And then she comes to visit, and she's like, "Well, Auntie M, I actually don't think I want to go to Lego."
First of all, she calls you Auntie M.
Auntie M,
That's fucking cute.
It's so cute. And then she was like, "I think I'm too old to go to Legoland. I don't think I can go." And in my head, I'm like, "Fuck!" Because I can't get a
fucking chance. Okay?
I know, it's my birthday. Me, grew an adult.
Are you lying to her? You're like, "You're not too old. You're never too old." Or are you like, "Listen, kid, this is my dream, not yours."
Well, no, I was just like, "What do you want to do instead?" And she was like, "Well, I want to go to the American Girl doll cafe."
Oh.
And we literally brought her American Girl doll, fine, whatever. But like, I was eating like macaroni and cheese with a doll as an adult next to me, being like, "This sucks. This sucks. I want to go to Legoland." And we had to walk around and buy like a $50 dress with shoes or something for her doll, which I'm happy to do. But I'm like, I want to enjoy this. And I was like, I'll never be able to enjoy this because I don't have a kid with me. I can't.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? Ask to babysit someone's kid so I can just go to Legoland? That's even weirder.
Even just, it's been great watching all of these animated movies with no guilt, with no like.
Gosh.
Yeah, I was because man, it is weird. Like, first of all, you become super soft after you have a kid.
Yeah.
Like, I did not have these emotions before this little fucker got here, and now it's like I heard there's a program where if you like babies in the NICU or just babies without parents or ones that were taken away that are in the hospital, they need a certain amount of time being held.
Yeah.
And there's not enough nurses. Like, these people are busy working. So people volunteer to go hold babies just so that they have, time being held by a human instead of just being in a box all day, right?
Sure, yeah.
And it's like, now that my son is almost 3, it's like, I am really, like, I'll be like, "Hey, you give me a hug?" And he's like, "No." And so I'm missing that, like, baby on your shoulder that he used to give me, right?
Sure.
And I was talking to my wife. I was like, I'm 37. I was like, does it just scream pedophile if I want to volunteer to hold babies? Like, it's like, if you're a woman, it's like, oh, that's nice, that's sweet. But if I'm just like, yeah, I really want to hold some babies, I was wanting to volunteer for your program. What's the verdict? Is that weird?
I think they will still deny you even if you pass the background check. Even if you come back clean, do a drug test, whatever, they're still going to be I'm
going to have to wait until I'm like 60 before they're like, "Oh, what a cute older guy is wanting to, right now it's just like, the fuck's this guy doing here?"
Absolutely, 100%.
But that's what having that kid does is you're like, I don't want another baby right now, I mean, if my wife wants one, we'll have another one. That was the deal. But
sure.
I would love to hold other people's babies, which sounds really creepy.
I have a good time with it. I think it's fun holding their babies. I think it's fun, like, seeing how people parent. And then also, it's like, okay, yeah, whatever. I'm not going to mess this kid up. It's not going to be me. So I just have fun with them. It's like chill.
Have you gone to any playgrounds with your nieces or nephews?
Yeah. Well, I usually will go out of my way when they come to visit to do an activity that's just me and them.
Yeah.
So it's usually whatever we want to do.
Right.
Like I said, American Girl Doll Cafe, or we'll go to like those trampoline parks and stuff.
Cool, yeah.
And so I do those fun things.
So you see how nuts these other fucking parents are.
Oh yeah,
it's insane.
That shit.
Yeah, and we live in a neighborhood where there are far more wealthy people than us. We are definitely like the poor, like we're the trash element in the neighborhood. We moved there for a reason, you know?
Yeah.
And we'll go to the park, and then some of the conversations we hear where people are talking about, first of all, at the park we'll go to, a lot of it's not even the parents, it's the nannies.
Sure.
Right. And so we're in one of those neighborhoods, and and we can't afford nannies. We don't have nanny money. We're going with our son. But some of the conversations they'll have about, like, you know, I didn't want to go to the doctor. Instead, we ordered some crystals. And it's like, the fuck you did? Like these like, dumbass rich people. And you're just like, how do you have money? And I'm working all the time.
It astounds. Anytime I see someone like that saying something like that or doing something that's just so incredibly out of touch, it angers me because I'm like, I know you're not that much smarter than me. No. I know you're not, and you're making so much more money than me. Yeah. It's infuriating.
Well, okay, that's a good point though. Like, are you still in a relationship right now? I know you were dating somebody. Okay, so this relationship's going well.
Yeah, we've been together, I guess, 10 months now. Yeah, so it's been a little bit, yeah.
I tell everyone, it's like the first marriage, make it for money.
Yeah.
And then and then if it turns into love, great. If not, then when that, like, divorce, get your portion, and then go marry for love. Oh, and I told my wife and I have an understanding, like, if she ever has an opportunity to marry someone for money,
you're like, I get it.
We are allowed to get divorced. She can marry them for the money. When they die or whatever happens, we will get back together and we will live a happy life.
Oh, and that's the thing too. Adley he's set himself up for life. He's lucky in those ways. His sister's a lawyer. My sisters are a lawyer. So our prenup is going to be ironclad, so fucking tight.
No, but that's when you lay. But that's when you do the spouse thing where you're like, oh, come on, don't you trust me, and like all that kind. And you've laid on real thick, and then no prenup. Boom, get that out of the way.
I mean, I don't.
Adley, we're not planning on like a divorce, by the way.
Sorry.
We're just
we're really not, and it's.
And I think I've met him once. He's very nice. We gotta get this sorted out right now, okay?
Yeah, he's not scared about marriage because I've told him from I think our first date that I wanted to get married, and I bring it up like every month.
Yeah.
That I want to get married, so he's like he doesn't flinch at the idea anymore. Like he's like.
Well, no, I mean like you know. I don't know. We were together for. I think it was like 4 years whenever we got engaged. But then we know people where they've been together less than a year and they have just as happy of a marriage. You never know. There's no hard and fast rule anymore, you know? I mean, there never was, but all the assumptions are kind of leaving finally of like when that stuff should happen.
Yeah. And we haven't talked about that. We have like timelines of like when to move in together. And I want to move to New York for comedy. And I told him I want that to be in the next 5 years. And he, at least so far, has voiced that he's on board with that. So there's like certain timelines of things we have to get done with that. Marriage isn't necessarily on that timeline to get done before moving to New York.
No, I think my opinion is you definitely live together before you get married.
Oh, absolutely.
100%.
We're going to live together before we move to New York.
Okay.
Because if we can't even live together in Texas, a small apartment in New York is not going to be good.
What if it's just perfect though in New York compared to here?
I mean, I think it'll be great. He has
like, what if you just needed to be cramped in a smaller space and you're like, that's when I knew we really loved each other?
I mean, I think we do now. Like, we never fight.
Oh, that's not good.
But it's not bad either because I'll tell him, I'll be like, I'm not happy with this, blah, 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 or like whatever thing. And we just talk it out. He's never angry or harsh or anything.
Now I'm
like
getting kind of worried.
I know.
Now I'm worried
too.
Now I'm worried he might be like some kind of serial killer or something. No, you need to pick a couple fights with him and make sure he can like get it out when he needs to, you know?
I need to find out.
Like you need to make him get in the car one day and like peel out and like throw a middle finger in the air, but then come back a few minutes later and be like, I'm really sorry.
Well, the thing is, I don't know what is going to do that because with him being independently wealthy, he's never stressed out. I find out like money is a big stressor in most people's lives. So any other random thing will set people off or like they'll pour all that frustration from, you know, finances and their job and whatnot onto that thing that like mildly annoyed them. But since he's not like worried about that, he's like chill all the time.
Was he chill before he was able to become, you know, what's the right word for it? I know he's Basically, when he didn't have to rely on working as much anymore, like when he knew, like, okay, I'm comfortable now.
I think he was. I don't know. I didn't know him before that because...
You should ask him that. You should be like, were you ever just like stressed the fuck out all the time?
I asked him, I ask him all the time. I'm like, oh, do you ever like regret things from like childhood or like don't like things that your parents do? He's like, no,
man, that is
really great.
First of all, that is a great serious relationship question because that's the kind of thing my wife will ask, and I'm like, the fuck are we talking about right now? I just asked what you wanted to watch on TV. Like,
oh my gosh,
that's some like grade A like real relationship question.
Well, he said something. He made some joke about like being hit with a belt as a kid. He was never hit with a belt, and I said, oh, you weren't hit with a belt? He goes, no, Emily. And I was like, oh, everyone I know was hit with a belt. He's like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah. Fun fact, when we used to go to Walmart, I'm the middle child of 3.
Yeah.
When we used to go to Walmart, depending on how we acted in the car ride there, my dad would first go immediately to the clothing section and then put a belt on the buggy just to let you know, like, I'll fucking do this right here.
I will buy this belt and I'll take you back out
to
the
car. We're not buying it. I have it in the store and I'll pop you in the store with this shit if you get out of line. And so actually an even more funny story is so he was a school bus driver for a while at the school we went to.
Yeah.
So we would get on, like we would go with him to work, and then we basically rode the whole bus route with him until we got back to school and then went to school.
Yeah.
So there was one morning, like all the kids on the bus are just acting up, probably us as well.
Yeah.
He stops the bus, pulls us out, just gives us whoopings right there in front of everybody, gets back on the bus, doesn't say a word.
Oh my gosh.
But none of the kids knew he was our dad.
Oh my gosh, so they just saw the bus
They
driver
just thought he was like, this fucker just grabbed 2 random kids and whooped their asses on the side of the street.
Were they dead silent?
Dead silent. Pin drop all the way back to school that morning. And I'm sure there was like, I'll have to ask him about it again soon. He's told me about like, on the back end, I'm pretty sure there were like parent phone calls coming in.
Oh,
and be
I
like,
bet.
Who's this bus driver whipping kids?
Oh my.
And it's like, if that happened now, he'd be in jail.
Oh, for sure.
You know, like it would have been a whole thing. But back then, it's like, I mean, that was part of it, you know?
He just handled business.
Did your parents pop that belt where it was like...
Yeah, my dad also had a fraternity paddle. So
oh yeah, there you go.
That scared us. He like would tell us where it was in the closet. And
Did he ever actually have to use it, or was that just the threat? You know, like
I think
it was just
that was
the.
I think that was more of the threat, but the belt was like more the reality of it. And I just know Adley came from he has a good relationship with his family and has a very happy family life because when we went on vacation with them, no one got drunk the entire weekend.
Oh man,
I was like, am I the only one wanting a drink? Like,
Emily,
they were just chilling.
Emily, listen. First of all, y'all have never really had a fight. And now they're not getting drunk and making fools of themselves.
That's what I'm saying. Yes.
Is this really the kind of life you want?
I don't know.
I mean, come on now.
Functional? I don't know. I don't know if I can live like that.
He's going to have to be a little more fucked up just so you can get some material out of this stuff, you know?
I don't know. See, that's the thing. He's too well adjusted. And he has a good sense of humor, too, which makes me angry.
Yeah.
It really makes me angry.
Yeah, it would almost be more fun if he didn't get any jokes at all and he was dating a comedian, you know, like...
He comes to a lot of my shows, and I have quite a few bits about him. But,
yeah.
You know, they're not like...
I remember being shocked when you told me how comfortable he was with you talking about him on stage so early.
Oh, he loves it.
Yeah, because I remember like watching you perform, and I was like, oh shit, she just dropped his fucking name, and like...
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
People don't believe me that that's his real name. I'm like, no, that's his real name. And he loves it because I always say very nice things about him because I'm not that comic that trashes their partner on stage. So it's always back on me, whatever the joke is. But people are like, oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. Like they'll talk to him about things. Emily said this about you. Is that true? Oh my gosh. And they're like, oh, she says you're so nice. Oh, blah, 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 blah. Like, and they're like, oh, then he's like, oh yeah, just makes friends with all these people. And he absolutely loves it. Yeah.
That's so happy. I mean, how different do you feel now that you've been in a 10-month relationship?
I feel very, I feel happy, but I feel nervous because I've never had anyone this supportive of comedy, especially if me mentioning them on stage or coming to my shows. Like people are like guys, like kind of the novelty sounds fun of it, but then like the reality of how busy I am. A lot of people don't like it. Adley's like, yeah, I'll see you twice a week and that's fine. And he's totally okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's great, but not everyone is. So it's like very weird to be like, you're really okay with all this. You're really okay with me traveling and all this. And so it feels weird, but like, I'm happy. So I'm trying not to second guess it too much, you know?
Yeah. I've forgotten like what all that feels like. I've been getting like a little obsessed with like other people's relationships or just dating in general.
Do you watch Love is Blind? You and your wife would love
No,
it.
that one looks too stupid.
It's stupid, but it's so funny.
I think Love on the Spectrum is better than Love is Blind.
I've only watched a few episodes of Love on the Spectrum, but that one tugs at my heartstrings so much
it's
that I'm
so
like,
good. Well, okay,
know.
like for instance, there's this comic who wrote a book. Her name is Jenny Hogan. Are you familiar with her? She wrote a book called it's something like I'm hotter or I'm prettier than a plate of refried beans.
I don't.
Something like that.
It's not coming to me.
Anyway, she did something on Tinder where she put like her profile picture and a plate of beans to like make sure she was hotter than the beans. And thankfully she always came back hotter than the beans.
Yeah.
But the whole book is just about like the woes of like dating right now with, just apps, all the bullshit, texting back and forth, all the new etiquette of dating, which my wife and I, we didn't do any of that shit. We were
sure.
And so that's more of what become fascinating. We would talk all the time. It's like, all right, if you had to jump back in the game, how do you think it would go? And it's like terribly. It would go terribly.
Absolutely terribly. It is a sea of
yeah. So I love hearing about,
bullshit.
because I remember being like 10 months in with my wife, and it's like all the unknown that's exciting, but it's terrifying at the same time. And it's, I remember us moving in together, and her family's a little more conservative, a little more religious. I don't think they really liked us moving in together. So just all those little moments,
Yeah.
I mean, we have our new moments with the kid, but it's just now we're on a team.
Sure.
Now it's us versus him.
There's no like second guessing on like the stability of it. You're like, we're solid, we're together.
Oh yeah.
Like you're not worried about that stuff. No. So it's kind of like, let's
now
just not mess up this human.
Now we've been through so much shit together where we're like, we're not going through shit with other people. It's you and me. This is fucking it right now.
I don't know. When people have been married 3-4 times, I'm like, how do you do
Seriously.
it? Who has the mental capacity? Not me.
I know.
I absolutely have not.
You know what's funny, though? You were talking about just what you said, though. We were watching Meghan King at that same show, and she openly talks about she's been married 3 times on stage.
Oh, right.
And she's got, and she jokes about, like, I'm terrible at this or something. And I think she's got 2 or 3 kids. Mm-hmm. But she was like talking to us at that show, like, how many kids do you have? And we're like, 1. She's like, yeah, you're not real fucking parents. Like, she's like, you're not a real parent till you have 2 or 3 and they outnumber you and all this kind of shit. And I was like,
oh my God.
And so then I was like, oh shit, they like, because we look at people with no children.
Yeah.
Like if y'all got married tomorrow, we would still look at y'all like,
yeah, good luck.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck. Oh, y'all are still brunching and having all that fun.
Gosh.
You don't know what the hell you're doing. And I was like, holy shit, Megan looks at us like that for only having 1 kid.
Absolutely.
And I was like, damn, I forgot there's all these new levels of judgment.
And then it's like also when you have more than 1 kid, you're managing multiple schedules, multiple personalities, multiple bullshit. Mm-hmm. And it's like,
yeah. And this little kid's personality, I mean, obviously we see ourselves in there, but then there's also a bit that's just unexplainable. Yeah. This is his stuff that was made up, and
you're
by
just
him.
looking at each other, you're like, where'd that one come from?
Yeah,
we got to figure that out.
Yeah, and so then I'm like, man, a second one, we're really rolling the dice on that personality. Like, because both of us, it's like, we can both get kind of hot-headed, stubborn, and it's like, God. And so now we look at our son like, if we don't give him a yogurt, he freaks the fuck out sometimes.
Oh my gosh.
We're like, man, it's going to be rough. Like, and it's like, so the second kid could be worse than that or better.
Should be total opposite. They could be just
They could be
super
chill. Yeah. They could be the one who's coming up to our son and being like, here's your yogurt. Just calm down. Oh. We'll put Bluey on TV. Just relax. Like, now that you've been in a relationship longer, has the thought of children entered your mind?
It usually does like around right before like the start of my period because my hormones are
because your
just like,
biology's saying have a baby.
Yeah, it's like what's going on? And I said to him one time, I'm like, well, what if we just like had a baby? And he was like, Emily, we kind of talked about that. Like we both know that that's not really totally what either one of us want. And I'm like, I'm on my period. I don't know what I want. I'm just like, don't tell me. And then like when I'm off of it, I'm like, no, yeah, I'm cool. I'm chill.
I think I've thought about that a lot, about how women have that biological chemistry screaming at them, reproduce, and the mind games that can play on you.
I think mine is less of it's absolutely never going to happen, and it's more of if it is absolutely the right person, then I would consider it.
Yeah.
But it's like seeing how some people just like go into these things willy-nilly and just whatever have, things happen like pregnancies from one night stands or whatever. And I'm just like, that scares the shit out of me because you have no idea what kind of person that person is. Like from dating them a short period of time, let alone as a parent.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and you're going in this full force?
Yeah.
That's scary as hell.
Well, and like I've been out of the game so long, but whenever I was in it, it's like I remember condoms being a thing that everyone just used. And now everyone I fucking know has knocked somebody up or had like a crazy scare. And it's like, all right, I guess condoms aren't a thing anymore, or they're just, because in my mind, the amount of friends I've had who have gotten pregnant off of a one-night stand or just an unexpected pregnancy with the person they were with a very short time.
Yeah.
I'm like, really, guys? Like, were you not wearing a condom? Does your pull-out game just suck? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, was she not on birth control? Like, what
it's like there are so many, and these are people, it's like, y'all make money, you have insurance, like you are able to get these things.
Right.
And they're just like, well, I mean, we just didn't, I'm like,
yeah.
All right. Well,
okay. Yeah.
All right.
I think depending on how this election goes is going to determine if I get an IUD or not. If Abbott gets reelected, I think I'm going to get an IUD for sure.
I think
I'm scared.
I don't care for Abbott, but I think he's hands down going to win it.
And that's unfortunate. I unfortunately think that that's probably the truth.
Yeah. And I talked to my wife about it. I've just hated several of the last elections. Like I don't like Biden. I hate Trump. I don't like Hillary. I hate Trump, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, God, these choices fucking suck. And it's like, I don't think there's anything wrong with Beto, but I also don't look at him and go like, here's the things he's achieved that I really like.
Sure.
And that's my only frustration. It's like, I like a lot of what you stand for, but it's like, can I just get you to do something that I'm like, fuck yeah, he did that thing.
Yeah, that's the thing too. And it's so...
But what's my other option?
I mean, yeah,
you know
honestly.
what I mean?
And I mean, I'm going to vote for him no matter what, because it's like, I personally don't feel like I can say a whole lot if I don't vote.
No, I hear you.
So I was like, I'm going to vote for him, but unfortunately, I still think Texas has not become purple enough to flip to blue.
I think he would have been better as a senator if he had beat Cruz. When
he had only
ran.
lost by 216,000.
I know.
Yeah.
And I was really rooting for him on that because I thought, like, this would be a good spot for him. He'll get into Texas politics a little deeper. He'll have time to kind of make some channels, make some headway.
Yeah.
Because my fear about not even just Beto, but even like Democratic candidates on a larger scale right now is that, I don't like the whole, vote blue no matter who. It's like, give me, because to me, that's the same thing. It's like, I criticize people who vote for Trump just because he's a Republican. Yeah. I don't think anybody should have to vote a party like that, but that's the system we're stuck in, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like what's going to happen is even if we get somebody like Beto in, I'll be happy that Abbott's not there. But then I feel like you're just loading up the arsenal of who's going to run against Beto that could be twice as worse.
I know.
Just like after Obama, we got Trump.
I know, and it feels.
And I thought Obama was a good president.
Sure.
I think every president has bad things.
Yeah.
I think he had fewer bad things than other presidents.
I'm not quite sure what it is about Americans and American politics where the swing of the pendulum being so severe is expected and normal.
Yeah.
Like they expect such a wide like there's absolutely no meeting in the middle on anything. And I don't know where we came up with that idea of that being normal.
Yeah.
Because that's not, you're literally dividing half the country and you're basically like, no matter what, 150 million of you are going to be really upset and that there's no baseline of decency ever established for what people deserve.
Well, like the cynic in you wants to go like, that, by keeping you separated, that's how they keep control and make money and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, but that's also like a tired record. Like, I'm tired of hearing that. It's like, because when you talk to people in person, right?
Yeah.
They aren't that crazy.
No, absolutely
you can talk
not.
to a conservative, loving person.
Sure.
And you'll find a ton of common ground as a liberal.
Sure.
Ton of common ground.
Absolutely.
And, and it's like gun control, which is one of the biggest issues, right? you'll have a beer, talk to somebody who's conservative, and at some point to be like, yeah, I mean, we got to put a few fucking rules on this. And it's, like once they know you're not on the attack and trying to take every single thing from them. And I think that's what scares me about Beto is I don't think he wants to take all your guns, but he has openly said he will take all your guns. Whether or not he really thinks he could do that,
sure.
That other side's just taking that and running with it and going like, he hates freedom, he hates the Second Amendment, he's, and it's like.
I think that, but also the Uvalde shooting.
Sure.
I think that has been a big deciding factor in a lot of people if they're going to vote for Greg Abbott or not, because he essentially hasn't done anything.
Mm-hmm.
All those police officers have been proven to be corrupt in how they didn't act and how so many of them were laid off and all the terrible footage you've seen and pretty much nothing's happened. They're suspended without pay, a lot of them. They're not being indicted. They're not doing anything. Like that to me, it's like me seeing that and you as a governor not doing anything about enforcing any type of restrictions, and you're just talking about bullshit mental health things
or even just open up the conversation.
Yeah.
Like, would it be so hard to come out as a governor and just go, guys, I don't know what the answer is here, but we got to start talking about something. Right? Just to say, like, I don't want to take your guns away, but guys, we got to figure something out now. And if we don't get solutions, somebody else is going to want to take your guns away.
Right.
So what do we do here? Like, just something where it's like, we're on the same team, but we got to fix this. I mean, I just posted about it today. It's like we're in Dallas, Texas. I don't know if it was two nurses or if it was a nurse and another worker.
A nurse and a social worker.
Social worker in a like a L&D unit or a postpartum unit. Mm-hmm. So the story that is out online so far is this guy and his wife had a baby. There was some sort of domestic dispute between him and his wife in the hospital. He starts beating his wife with a gun.
Oh, my God.
Saying that he'll kill the people coming in there. And then a nurse hears commotion. She gets shot and killed.
Oh, my God.
Somebody else looks in for commotion. They get shot and killed. Okay. And then luckily, a hospital police officer, I guess, happened to be in that area and was able to shoot the guy and, subdue him.
Yeah.
And that guy's not going to die. He's going to be tried and everything. And I'm all for due process, even though like people saw that go down. But it's like, look. This guy somehow got a gun into
a hospital.
What
did he need that for?
Right. And it's like, regardless of what side you're on, it's like that conversation has to be open to like, okay, do we need more metal detectors? Do we need security guards? It's like, if you're going to have the guns, we got to figure out how to make sure the guns aren't going into places like that. Yeah. Right. And it's like, if you're like, we need bazookas, but we want, bazooka monitors at every entrance to make sure they don't get in. And it's like, I mean, I don't like bazookas, but I'll meet you in the middle, I guess. Like, can we just talk about something?
And that's the thing. It's the unwillingness to have any compromise on that situation. Yeah. I think for a lot of people, they're like, okay, this is the hard line in the sand that like, you will not protect us or our kids. Yeah. So we have to.
Well, and then what does that do, right? That makes the more liberal side go, you shouldn't have anything ever. And it's like, okay, guys, let's be real. Like, because the way I look at the gun thing now is, I think about drugs a lot. You know, how I'm starting to think more and more that if you legalized the majority of drugs and focused on education of drugs and focused on preventing people from becoming, like, just like with alcohol, it's like alcohol is available. You have a history of alcoholism. You should probably not drink alcohol. Yeah. Right. And people still become alcoholics, but they would have, whether it was legal or not, right? So I think that way about guns. It's like, well, I don't think banning drugs really, and the war on drugs really solves it. So do I think that's going to work for guns? I don't think that's going to work.
I don't think it's going to work.
So I'm realistic. It's like, look, everything these conservative people are saying about if you ban the guns, it's not going to stop anything. It's like, that's the same thing I'm saying about drugs and alcohol and other things. So, all right, I'll agree with you on that. But it's like, but what do we do? Because we do have rules on alcohol, and I think they're good rules. Yeah.
So why can you have this semi-automatic gun at 18, but an 18-year-old can't buy a 6-pack of beer? What sense does that make? Yeah. What do you think is more harmful? That you let this 18-year-old be able to shoot 19 kids in an elementary school unstopped, but he can't buy beer? And you're like, come on. It's like, why can't you raise that age? Yeah. Why can't that be an older, more mature adult? Yeah. And it's upsetting to me because they're like, oh, well, we're going to give kids these backpacks that was Dallas ISD's response to this was we're going to give them these clear backpacks or bulletproof backpacks. And I'm like, the person who came in wasn't a student.
Right.
It wasn't a faculty member. That means nothing.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, whatever, maybe it could stop something, but the real culprit, these older teenage boys or adults, this was an adult at this point, he wasn't going to this elementary school. It's the same thing with Sandy Hook.
Yeah.
He wasn't a student there. He was an adult.
I could be wrong, but I think one of the most common things is these are all just kind of like weird loner dudes, right? And like, because I think one of them had like a manifesto about like women not liking him and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and
because
like,
it's women's fault. Yeah.
but you know what I mean? And it's like, okay, you know, this is definitely like a multi-pronged thing here, but it's like, we got to work. Like, if you're going to say it's mental health,
Sure.
go ahead and work on that. While you're working on mental health, could we throw a couple of these other rules in too?
That,
You
and it's
know, like-
also, I mean,
Because guess what? If we find out it is solely mental health,
yeah.
we'll have data to prove that none of these rules did anything. But once we did all the mental health stuff, everything cleared up. And then, you know what? You could take away all those rules because you'd be able to go, no, guys, it was the mental health. We solved it. But at the same time, what are you doing to solve mental health? Are you opening up clinics that help people with schizophrenia and bipolar and
Access
like all
to
these
medication, therapy.
all these homeless people that are filling up every single city that were like, it's mental health. It's like, but what are you doing for them?
Yeah,
They're just getting worse and worse. They have nothing.
it's like a blanketed response
Yeah.
to justify any of the actions that any of the homeless people do,
Yeah.
which I'm sure a lot of it is mental health. I'm not saying that those aren't the main contributing factors, but things in regards of violence, especially. Psychology Today put out a study. I think the guy's name was Scott Reeder, the psychologist who wrote it. He said that extremism breeds online from lone wolf, quote unquote, type people like those random school shooters because they're on the fringes of society. They have low socioeconomic status or low opportunity to raise themselves from a certain level of socioeconomic status to a higher one. They have lower education. They have abusive family members. There's a lot of indicators that show from just what they consume on Twitter. And then when you actually get the data on these people who are posting about this dangerous rhetoric or commenting and liking on it, those are main factors that people aren't aware of. There's like no education around the lone wolf. And people know it's like some weirdo. It's like, well, what makes them weird?
Right.
They have there's no hope that they're ever going to improve their lives. It's why ISIS is so good at recruiting, because they will find these people, and especially in the Middle East, in certain towns or cities, whatever, that have people living impoverished, basically. If you are able to join a group that can feed yourself and your wife or your parents, and they're saying, well, if you do this, we'll pay your family this, what would incentivize them to not do that?
Yeah. It's the same
It's a
move.
desperation.
It's the same move that the cartel does, like in South America. Is, you know, hey, look what we're doing for you. These other people aren't doing anything for you.
Yeah, that sense
these other
of belonging, that sense of purpose.
And these other people might be the reason you have nothing.
Yeah.
Even if whether it's true or not,
Sure,
right?
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I don't know. Do you think Beto could pull it off?
I would hope that there could be an opportunity where it was a reverse Donald Trump Hillary Clinton situation where it was vastly underestimated. There is data to prove that it's going to be closer than what it has been previously in the past, because this year there's 1.7 million voters that weren't there before. We have 2.9 million more voters than we had in 2018. And I think there's like almost 18 million registered voters in Texas.
That would be a mix of people moving here and a mix of people like turning 18.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of new voters. Which way those people are swaying, I don't know. But it's just the numbers. Apparently, the new registered voters are leaning towards a more blue vote than a red vote, which also is a lot of this a response to Roe v. Wade and other things that could be coming down with the Supreme Court.
That is the biggest thing I've heard. Like the conservative people that I do know that are very conservative, a ton of them have been like, this whole abortion thing is out of hand.
Yeah.
And they're like, what the? They're like, I don't want you to get an abortion, but I also don't want it to be illegal. You know, and they're starting to go like, what the fuck is that? You know?
I mean, it's because there's also the rhetoric around abortion is these women are promiscuous, they're not being safe, they're risky, they're selfish, all of these things. But then you don't taken the other actual data that shows a lot of women women who have abortions are actually mothers previously to themselves, and they know that having another child would put them in a more impoverished situation. They absolutely can't afford it. And then what can you say when there are victims of rape and incest, or there are victims who were in terrible domestic violence situations, now they've found themselves pregnant with a man who hurts them or could hurt their baby?
Yeah.
And it's, it's like those are real world scenarios that do touch everyone's lives. So I do see, I'm sure a lot of conservatives are like, I don't want it to be totally illegal, because they know people who've been in that situation.
Yeah. I grew up in a really small town, and I remember we had like we would go to the Wednesday night church services, and we're not religious. It was just like the social thing you did in that small town, right?
Sure.
And so it was like the youth group thing. And I remember the youth pastor or whoever, whatever they call them, they were talking about abortion back then, which, by the way, to be talking about abortion for this long is so fucking annoying. It's like, can we just say, up to this point, you can have it. After that, you have the kid. That's it.
Most states have that,
right? And it's like, just we'll decide what that cutoff is that's reasonable, that where basically both people are like, well, it's not everything I wanted, but I think it's okay, and I think that'd be fine, right? Like, we're not going to do it at 9 months, but we're not going to do the cutoff at 6 weeks either.
Yeah, where most women don't even know.
Right. It's like, let's get in the middle. But anyway, this guy was like, because one of the kids was like, well, what about if like someone gets raped and they get pregnant? He's like, that's a good question. He's like, that child, even if it came out of rape, was a gift from God.
Fuck that guy.
And it's like,
absolutely fuck that
but
guy.
when you're young, you don't really think about that. But there's all these impressionable minds that are like, yeah, it's a gift from God. And then you hear adults where they do have that religious thing. They're like, well, God gave you that child. And it's like, God did not give you a rape incest baby.
So God thought it was a good idea that rape exists?
Yeah, it's like, come on, just stop. Yeah. Nobody wants to have to go and kill babies.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do that. But this situation's fucked.
Yeah.
This kid do we have data on rape incest babies and whether they thrive or not? If you show me data where it's like, actually, 99% of them have a very great life, to me, I feel like the moment they find out how they got brought into this world, there's going to be a lot of trauma there. And again, I could be speaking out of school. If you're a rape incest baby, send me an email, let me know.
Yeah.
But like,
I'm just saying, from what I've met from people who've had kids, the ones who didn't want to have them weren't great parents.
Yeah.
So if you experience something super traumatic like a rape and you're forced to be a parent, then my bets are you're not going to be the most enthusiastic, involved parent.
No.
You're probably going to be in situations that you're not acting with kindness and empathy and understanding and parenting in the way a normal parent, I guess, would be looking to do.
Well, and you're never going to be wholly normal again, because you're also like, I don't know. I think about when my wife was pregnant and when we had our son. It's like I wasn't even carrying a baby, right? So the 9 months up to that wasn't really anything for me to worry about. But then the 6 months after, I mean, I shouldn't say worry about, like, it affected her so much more than it affected me during that 9 months, right?
Yeah.
But like the first 6 months we had that baby, it's just chaos. And like, we both have jobs. We both were prepared for this.
And you wanted it. And that's the thing. It was chaos
so it's like, that
you wanted.
It's like, I doubt you even have time to process and get therapy for the fact that you were raped.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you probably don't even get an opportunity to fully recover from that. And it's like, and take care of this thing now.
Yeah. This thing that's helpless, that needs you. So now you feel that guilt because you have to take care of this thing that you're like, I wouldn't be in this situation if I could have helped it.
And then we'll just sprinkle in a little bit of postpartum depression.
Oh,
and
my gosh.
You know what I mean? And I've said it on here before, and it's like, I hope CPS never takes my kid away, because I would never do this, but I'm just talking about, like, we were at those points where you're so tired. He was like waking up every 2 hours, I think, or I can't remember what it was now. It feels like so long ago, but you're exhausted, you're tired.
Yeah.
You're fighting with each other about the most minor things because you're exhausted and tired.
Sure.
And you don't know how to raise a baby. You're trying to figure it out. And I remember, like, he was crying and crying, and we were so tired. I was like, in my mind, it clicked. I was like, oh, this is the point where people snap.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
This is where, if I wasn't aware of this right now, someone would be like shaking the baby and telling them, like, shut up or something.
Absolutely.
And it's like, oh, but before that, you're like, I could never see how anyone would do that. It's like, now I'm not condoning it, but I see the breaking point now.
Sure, yeah.
Now imagine your baby came from rape.
Yeah.
From your uncle.
Or God knows whoever else.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, and now you're at that breaking point. It's like,
I just would never.
And I know that's like an extreme example, but it is
extreme, but it's also a reality for a lot of people.
Yeah, like
we have, I think in Texas, over 10,000 untested rape kits that they were supposed to solve and get rid of all those rapists off the streets.
Emily, we'll get to it. We'll get to it, all right? Just chill out.
Yeah, but, take care of the baby, while we're not doing this, like solving your rape or whatever.
It's like, it's probably a very male point of view, but it's like, man, I'm so sick of talking about it. It's just make a reasonable guideline and let's all agree that like, this side's going to give a little and this side's going to give a little and we're going to do something that's reasonable. And then there's going to be a hard cutoff. And unless your doctor has a good, strong reason, again, like it should be between the doctor and the patient.
Sure.
Right? We can have some exceptions, but like, can we just make a rule and then move on?
Well, just think about it. If you were telling people, it's about the autonomy, too, of the choices you can make for your body. And it is a way for men to control women financially and within their own homes to make them have kids or to make them not have kids. Like that decision changes your entire life. And on a very minor scale, like imagine how many men in your life would, if the government told you, you cannot have more than 2 tattoos. If you get a 3rd tattoo, you're going to prison for this. Imagine how many men would be so infuriated with the government telling them they can't have more than 2 tattoos that they'll go to underground tattoo parlors and get their stupid ass little tattoos.
Yeah.
And then have them on their body, but then like hide it from certain people that they know would tell on them.
Yeah.
And it's like sounds so inconsequential.
Yeah.
But how infuriated that
not to mention
so many
that
people would be.
They put a $10,000 bounty on if you find someone with a 3rd tattoo.
Exactly. Yeah. And
it's absurd.
That's what I'm saying. And it's like that, but a tattoo changes you forever, or the way people say, like, oh, well, you can't get rid of it. Well, it's a part of who you are. I'm like, that's the same argument you give a kid. But you would never tell a man, oh, you cannot get a 3rd tattoo. If you get a 3rd tattoo, that's illegal in your state and you're probably going to go to jail. And all of your neighbors would probably turn you in. Yeah. And it would change your life for the rest of your life, you would be different. You would have a criminal record for having a 3rd tattoo. It's an insane thing to even think that you could tell women that because even the minuscule of a tattoo, you're like, yeah, that sounds insane to say to someone.
But the logic's, all of these things, right? Like guns, abortion, all this stuff we're talking about, all of it still comes back to these deeper things, right? Because it'd be one thing if you were, and I'm not saying this is how it should go, but let's say you banned abortion 100%. Nobody gets any abortions ever. But you were like, but we are going to have the most comprehensive sex education program you have ever had. Anyone who wants contraception is going to have access to it. And by the way, men at 18 will pay you $10,000 to get a vasectomy.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of people do that. I know Colorado
but it's like, if you were doing something to say like, we're going to also try to limit abortions,
there would be more merit to the argument.
Yeah, but when you're just like, don't do it. It's like, well, guys, it's just, look at history. It's going to happen.
Well, and also who it disproportionately affects.
Well, yeah.
If you're rich and you're white, it's easier for you to get an abortion. If you're poor, if you're brown or black, it's harder for you to get an abortion. People have these different stigmas, and if you have more money, you can travel out of state, or you can buy the pills online, or do whatever. But if you're someone who lives paycheck to paycheck, like actually I think most people do, but a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck, and you can't afford $250 for pills, let alone an $800 abortion at an actual clinic. Yes, you're forcing people to have these babies, and now they're going to continue to be in the socioeconomic status that they are, or worse. Yeah. And you're like, but that's just what you have to do and pull yourself up by the bootstraps. I'm like, they don't have any bootstraps. If they had them, they probably wouldn't have had this unwanted pregnancy. Yeah. Well,
like, let's just look at it from a greed standpoint, right? Let's forget humanity. It's like, if you just focused on education and contraception, you'd probably be able to slash a lot of your government-assisted programs.
Sure.
Right? Because you would avoid people being, institutionalized into some of those programs.
Sure. Yeah.
You'd break a lot of cycles that way.
Sure.
Right? But if you bring up any of those arguments, they're like, well, they need to fix their shit. And it's like, all right, but it's
Yeah.
just not that simple. Like, it just doesn't work that way.
If you don't teach a 16-year-old about birth control and condoms, but they get erections or they just have sex because that's what a normal 16-year-old does. They're interested in their peers in that way.
Yeah, I wish I could go back in time and hear some of the conversations me and like 14-year-old friends had about like sex and like
I was the dumbest kid. Yeah, absolutely.
Because we had a high school, baseball coach was teaching our sex ed class.
Oh my gosh.
And you're allowed to teach abstinence only. So it was basically just like, don't do it. And it's like what? You don't learn about pregnancy, you don't learn about STDs, you don't learn about things,
And so when kids don't know, they become ashamed.
Right.
Because they know something happened or something's wrong with their body.
Yeah.
And they were never given any tools to talk about it.
Yeah.
And so they're like, "Ooh, I'll just hide this because maybe it'll go away," because they're teens and they don't know.
Yeah, they're fucking morons.
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah, it's fascinating. My wife gets really stressed out.
She's a labor and delivery nurse, I bet.
Well, yeah. I get a little stressed out too, just thinking about our son growing up, and it's like, holy shit! Like,
yeah,
he's gonna be, he's gonna be in a situation where he could knock up a girl at some point.
Absolutely,
and that's fucking terrifying.
It's scary.
And so I'm already thinking about, all right, how are we gonna talk to him about this? And she's like, he's not even 3 yet. And I'm like, yeah, no, you're right.
I remember I got the sex talk not from my parents, but from a doctor when I was 12, which feels, my mom was in the room. It wasn't like I was alone, but he was just like, I had to deliver a baby to a 12-year-old. So I just have to give these talks earlier and earlier to girls. And it was the most awkward, uncomfortable situation. I felt like it was totally handled wrong. I would never teach a girl about sex or even talk about sex to her. From an adult standpoint in that scenario. Like, yes, it was a doctor and nothing bad happened in that scenario, but it was so strange. It felt very impersonal. Like, he wouldn't even look me in the eye. And it was very like, it just felt very much like they were just trying, it was like almost felt like a scare tactic. And it was just totally the wrong way to go about it. Yeah. I would never do that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird. Just the whole sex talk in general is so strange, right? Because I don't think anybody's really perfected it yet.
I don't think so.
And now you throw in the ability to access like porn anytime you want as a teenager. That scares me. Right? So you're getting all of these.
That would scare me as a parent.
Yeah, totally like unrealistic versions of what's happening. As far as like the actual physical act, unrealistic versions of what consent is, dialogue. Yeah. And plus it's online porn sites, so I'm sure there's weirdos in there trying to chat people up and it'll take you to other chat rooms. It's just like, that's such a weird, I would not. Yeah, and and by the time my son is able to get like a phone or whatever, it's only going to be crazier.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's going to be fucking insane.
I don't even want to know what technology will be like. That scares me. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Good luck with that one.
Yeah, you thinking about children now?
Not anymore, actually. Especially not talking about creeps online.
Oh my God. We're not going to go down that path. All right. We got to bring this back around to something else.
Right.
Yeah.
Got to bring it back to comedy.
No, but it's true. It's like, I don't know. It kind of goes back to what I was talking about with Joe Rogan, where you're like, I need to make sure to a certain extent I do not lose touch with. I don't have a desire to be young, but I need to know what's happening with young people all the time, so that it's like I can at least go, okay. Because just think about like the amount of shit you could hide from your parent that doesn't know how to operate a cell phone like we do, right?
A ton of shit.
Yeah, and it's like, all right, shit. So
my parents, when I was a kid, if I got a bad grade or something and they took my phone away, when they went to bed at night, I would just take the SIM card out and put it in this other old cell phone I had, because we had cell phones like that, and they had no idea that I still had a cell phone.
That's
like
awesome.
they had the physical phone and thought that was enough.
Yeah.
And then they saw that like I was getting text messages and stuff on the phone. I didn't think that part through.
Yeah.
But they saw that and they're like, "How were you getting text messages? We had your phone." And then they found out that I could take the SIM card out. Yeah. And that was 15 years ago.
Did you rat on yourself, or were you like, I don't know how I'm getting them?
Oh yeah, I was just like, I don't know. But they knew. Of course. My dad,
You're like, what? It's getting messages?
My parents were so upset because we didn't have the unlimited plan before.
Yeah.
So before we got that,
These fucking youngsters don't know anything about that.
They don't
Paying
know.
for text messages.
My dad, it wouldn't tell you what it said in the text messages,
Yeah.
but my dad print out a stack of papers and he's like, "You got 16,000 text messages." And he was like, "Who are you talking to?"
Oh
and
my
I was
God.
like, "I don't know, my friends." Like, I was 14. I didn't have a job. What did you think I was doing all night? Like, of course, I was just texting people.
Yeah. Speaking of like the old cell phone days, when I was in a band and we were like traveling around the country, living in a van.
Yeah.
We had cell phones, but it's like, do you remember roaming?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like for people who don't know, it's like you get out into more like small towns, long distance drives and stuff, and you didn't have service. It was in roaming, and if you used your phone, it was super fucking expensive until you got back to a town, right? Well, the drummer in our band, his phone was on roaming like all the time, but he had met some girl in some town, and he was like, they were into each other, so he's like texting and calling her nonstop. Like we would be on like a 4-hour drive out in the middle of nowhere, and for like an hour and a half of that, he'd be on like a roaming phone call.
Oh my God.
Right. And so we're like, dude, you're on roaming. I'm pretty sure you're racking up some fucking money. And he's like, no, I don't think so. He's like, no, it says right here. And he's like, no. And then of course it's like, I think he was on his parents' cell phone plan or something still. So they get this like bill for probably like thousands of dollars.
Oh my God.
Because he did this for 3 months. They were talking like every day. And I was like, oh shit. And it's like, because I remember, I don't think we were able to play shows for a little while because he's like, I got to like work and like pay back some debt.
Yeah, I bet, dude.
But it's like the thought now of like, you'd have to pay extra money for being on a highway outside of Dallas. It's insane, right?
I have a cousin who, her mom is from Greece, and she went to college in Atlanta, but she met this guy because they would go back every summer, and she started dating this guy in Greece. And she had a cell phone that would like roam or whatever. That was during that time. She would call him all the time over in Greece.
Whoa.
From this cell phone. And there was 1 month where she had a $10,000 cell phone bill. God. I was like, it was insane. And her mom, made her pay it back. But like, I would fucking flip my shit.
I would feel so embarrassed because my first move would be to call the phone company and be like, this is a fucking mistake.
Yeah, like,
and
this
I'd
is
be
a
like,
scam.
somebody fix this shit.
Yeah.
And then when they break it down, I'd have to be like, I am so sorry. Like, you were correct.
I know, my daughter's just an idiot.
Yeah. That'd be fucking brutal.
That's what I'm saying. So I was like, I would have flipped if I was a parent in that scenario.
Yeah. Speaking of like technology advancing, I think about like phones, cameras, all this recording equipment's getting so good, right?
Yeah.
Do you think we'll be doing VR comedy shows where like you'll have a crowd, but then there'll be like some cameras in the crowd, and like I could buy a seat digitally with like a full 3D experience.
Digitally to a live show? Oh, absolutely. That'll happen. I mean, they already have VR comedy shows like in the metaverse.
Yeah.
So Pung's done a few of those.
I have to ask him about it.
Yeah. He said it was fun. I don't remember asking him what exactly that experience was like. But yeah, I absolutely believe that certain clubs will be able to have cameras set up where people can pay for it online and just stream and just be sitting there. And then, which will be weird too, because it's like, you'll be able to sell more tickets, but if like people stop showing up because that's an option,
but I think
then that'll be awkward.
I view it the other way though. I think you could now sell 1,000 tickets to a 100-seat room.
Oh, you could. Yes, I would say
right?
that.
Like you could be like, I only like to do intimate clubs, but my fan base that doesn't want to go out to stadiums either.
Or there's not one close, They don't live in an area
Yeah,
close
like how
to
great
one.
would it be to watch, like Pung, for instance. It's like, how cool would it be if I could watch Pung do a set at the Comedy Cellar?
Yeah, exactly.
I've never got to watch him there. I know he's performing there.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of badass, right?
I think we're going towards that. I think that'll definitely be an option on some level. I think the only pushback what I would see is things possibly being recorded and getting out that artists are working on that they wouldn't want out yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they've got to have a workaround. They're like, there were times I didn't even think about it, but there was times I was like watching Netflix on my phone and I wanted to like screenshot a scene and send it to a friend. It goes black. Yeah. So it's like, they can figure that out. But I even thought like, even on this show, it's like, how cool would it be if you just had like VR cameras around us, and it's like in theory you could like walk around the room and like they could just like sit there like
People
right
are
next to you.
Obsessed with podcasters, they
Yeah.
would absolutely do it.
I think it would be so much fun. I don't know.
I think people would absolutely love it. They would 100% do it because people talk about all the time, like when they write into podcasts, like these big podcasters will read emails and whatnot. And it's always these people being like, I love you so much. You feel like a best friend to me. But people would 100% do that.
Yeah.
If they already show up to live podcast tapings at clubs and venues. So 100% they would, there would be people who would want to be in that scenario to like sit in and like be able to watch it live, like from that VR perspective.
Did you watch Black Mirror at all?
I've seen a few episodes. It scared the shit out of me,
Yeah.
so I didn't keep watching.
Well, there's an
it.
episode where they have like a version of America's Got Talent or something.
Yeah.
And when you look out into the crowd, it's all digital avatars in the crowd, and
wow.
everybody's just like tuning in from around the world. But the digital avatars are like, you know, you're talking into a microphone at home, you're cheering, you're clapping, you're still getting the audience feedback.
Yeah.
Which is really strange.
Yeah, that is weird because I did comedy on Zoom a few times during the pandemic, and just the lag from that is so weird to me that like a VR thing, I'm like, I would do it. It would just be, it would take a while to get the hang of it and like get used to performing like that.
I broke and did one Zoom interview for this podcast because I swore I would never do it, and I liked I liked talking to them, but yeah, it sucked. Like
the quality of the lag.
Yeah, but the main reason was just, you know, they're from where are they from? I think they're from like Seattle, and so like they're not coming through here anytime.
Sure, yeah.
It was this Elwood Farms. Have you heard of them?
I don't know who that is.
They sell dog meat.
Are you joking?
It's dog meat.
Dog meat?
Sustainably raised dog meat.
And you had them on this podcast?
This podcast.
Did they have something to do with comedy or music, or you just like their dog meat and you want a sponsorship for your dog? Is that
so
what you're looking
they're
for?
actually vegans, and
Okay.
it's their satire site.
Their satire site.
Yeah, so Elwood Farms isn't real.
Oh, okay.
But they have an entire website, social media presence about their organically, sustainably raised dog meat. So they're
Oh my god.
So what she's doing is copy and pasting like a bunch of stuff from, you know, livestock, people who farm livestock and stuff, and is just changing like cow to dog, chicken to dog, whatever.
And are people freaking out online?
Freaking the fuck out.
Oh, that's
she's had
funny.
her account pulled down like 2 or 3 times now.
That's so funny.
But it was just like, let's be real, like the vegan vegetarian thing can get super annoying.
Yeah.
And it was like one of the most clever ways I've seen it done, because it tricked me at first. I was like, fucking dog meat?
That's what I was like, what are you talking about?
That exact reaction.
Yeah.
And then I like went to their website, and it's like they sell the whole thing. I think she has a background in digital marketing and stuff.
That's so
all her
funny.
stuff is super slick. And she has all these things about like Super Bowl Sunday, you know, chicken wings. We sell like 40 million wings a year. But have you tried our corgi wings? And they're like advertising it to businesses as like, you know, for each corgi you actually get 4 wings instead of 2. It's more cost effective. It's so funny though.
We call it the Queen's deal.
Oh my god!
Oh my
and
God.
like they have like pug chops or pug sliders or something.
Oh my
But the marketing's
God.
hilarious because it'll be like these delicious looking sliders, and then it'll be like some fat ass pug like sitting up that looks like super cute and wrinkly and
my
shit.
God.
And she has
so funny.
she has like stock photos of like, you know, some like Heath Ledger Brokeback Mountain looking cowboy who's like standing there, and they're like, we raise our dogs for the everyday American. And I was
Oh
like,
my God, that's so
it's so fun.
funny.
And it made me laugh too, because it's like this stock model who took these pictures.
Yeah.
Like if they ever see this campaign, it's going to be hilarious.
Oh my God.
But the amount of hate they get in the comments, because people don't, if you go to the website and you read all the way through, at the bottom they're like, hey, if you find this disturbing, just keep in mind these are the other animal practices, and we
Sure.
hope this shines light on maybe considering being vegetarian or vegan.
Sure, yeah.
And they're getting like death threats and like all this kind of stuff. It's incredible.
Oh my God.
And like the comments will be like, how fucking dare you, and blah, blah, blah. And then
What
you
is this site called again?
It's Elwood Farms.
Elwood. I'm going to look at this.
I'll send
when
you a
I go
link.
home. I'm so excited.
And but in the comments, you know, you'll see them like lose their shit, and then
Yeah.
a couple comments later, they'll be like, oh, I read the thing. Or whatever.
Sorry. They write their like edit comment. So I did not realize that this was. Oh my God.
It's pretty great. Yeah. So I had her on just because I knew like she's probably not coming to Dallas anytime soon, and it was so funny.
Yeah.
And I was worried because her following got huge. Like I think it was well over 100,000.
Wow.
And then they took it down. And then she built it up again, and then I think they took it down again.
Oh my God!
And they were saying she like violated all these standards, which further proves the kind of hypocrisy of like, but there's other farm sites that
are
slaughter
actually
meat.
doing this. Yeah,
yeah. And so until she put satire on the site, it was being pulled down.
Oh wow!
But that was the funny part is there was nothing on there to really let you know it was satire unless you went to their website, read the whole thing all the way
and
through.
And at the very bottom, it's like we're just joking.
Yeah,
like,
basically. So I was like, oh my God, it's the most incredible troll.
So funny.
Yeah, but even that little bit of lag, it's like I know if I was able to have her sitting here, it would be a more fun conversation. Yeah,
yeah.
You know, on those, you're always like, "Hi, how are you?" Like it's a little distant.
It's more pauses that you would do than what you would do in a normal conversation.
That's what makes me excited about like the idea of that VR stuff. It's like imagine if it's going to get so good that you can have those real time interactions,
100%,
right?
100%.
Yeah, it's like just like when the world like when you first had like fucking I don't know AOL Instant Messenger, like what that opened up for communication.
Oh yeah,
and so this VR stuff's going to be. I don't know.
You're going to eventually have a podcast studio like this where you have a camera on each side of each person. And so people feel like they're just sitting at the table. I could 100% see that. And people would be able to pick their seat and whatnot. And then
you'll hear them in the headphones and they'll be like, Emily, I really like the patch on your jacket. And you'll be like, I'm doing an interview.
Please shut up.
Yeah, it'll be badass.
Yeah.
How long have you been in comedy now?
Almost 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah, in February. Yeah.
Before I let you go, I want to know, now that you've been 5 years into it, what do you think has been the biggest surprise? The biggest thing you didn't know you didn't know?
About comedy or just life in general?
Comedy, life, take your pick.
What I didn't know.
Yeah, Emily now from 5 years ago.
I didn't know that a lot of people didn't like how directly I speak to them. People, I guess, expect women to speak more softly and like kind of like sugarcoat things. I didn't realize that because that's just not how I speak. That's in general. In comedy, I did not know now 5 years in how much I needed to take care of myself to do this and be healthy and have fun. But I really enjoy it. And then also I didn't know how creative I could be with it. Like, because I just love talking about things that people are not talking about and having such a wide reach and being able to do that so freely now, it helps me discover who I am. So I love that about comedy.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
It's been incredible. I've really, because like I said, I think I've only been watching you for about 3 years now, maybe 4 years.
Yeah.
Whenever the old Dallas Comedy House was existing.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
God.
And but it's just been exciting. Like all of you guys out of that little, I don't even know. It almost feels like a class, right?
It
like
does,
you guys went to school this year.
Yeah.
But it's been so fun. Like everybody's growing in such different ways.
I know.
It's really cool.
I'm really excited about it.
Yeah.
I've been feeling that way recently, so I'm happy about it.
And now there's
nice
now you're at the point where there's the crop of newcomers coming in.
I know. And I'm like, who are all these people? Because it's like during COVID, like people were coming out in droves afterwards. And it's like you see those people dwindle away because whatever things happen, they lose interest, whatnot. But the people who've stuck around, I'm like, oh shit, okay. Like there are some funny people here. It's exciting. Yeah.
All right. Well, as always, thanks. Thanks for coming on. I don't want this to be another year.
I don't want it to
back.
be either.
And I'll have to tell Michael that his shows don't count as my shows.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is like your second home. Like
I know. I love it. And I love that you did with the screen and the TV.
You know what? I put that up there. I don't even have a camera on it. Nobody ever even sees that.
It's just for you.
It's just for us to remind us where we're at.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's all your social media stuff again?
It's just at Emily Grefer. My last name's spelled Grefer. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all just my name, yeah.
And you're pretty consistently performing in Arkansas, Oklahoma, North Texas, Central Texas.
Yeah. And then Kansas. And then I also, I perform a lot in Houston and Austin. And I have family in like the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area. So I'm going to try to make more trips up there to like, I know some people up there with those comedy scenes, so to try to, be more
See
consistent.
what I mean? It's just popping off.
Trying, yeah.
You're so different from little Emily, who was like, I'm going to start going to Arkansas more.
I know, right?
I think you said, like, I just drove up there and told him I wanted to do this or something.
I know.
Like,
It was, I don't know what I was thinking then.
I'll have you back on here in like another 3 years, and you'd be like, listen, we got to get out of here. I got to get to the theater down the street.
Oh my gosh, shut up.
All right. All right. Anyway, thank you so much, Emily.
Thank you.
The I'm a Fan of podcast, music, comedy, and more.